on?
We are definitely on, and we have another amazing couple of guests on tonight from the Next Step Australia. We have big, massive welcome to Simo and Richie. Welcome to Wormholes podcast.
Thanks, lads. Thank you very much for inviting us and having us on your show.
Yeah, cheers, guys. It's really good to be here.
Yeah, we've been looking forward to chatting to you guys just about men's mental health, or just mental health in general, because it's just such a, like we were saying before we went on air here, we were saying it's starting to become more of a conversation, a community conversation, and getting like local lads, from Adelaide to talk about it is what we've been trying to do. So yeah.
I think what makes this one, sorry if I cut you off there, I think what makes this one special as well is you're the first people that we've had on the podcast that are not already friends. Like, so we've just met you 30 minutes ago. So this has happened from us having a podcast. A mutual friend has told us to reach out to you. We've reached out a while ago, then we've ended up being able to finally make it work tonight. So for us, it's a bit of a milestone because it's the first time we've had two complete unknowns. So please, don't hurt us too much.
Please go gentle as well, you guys.
Even just when I'm like, so the reason that we have to let you down the side is because our mate here has his recording studio in the front. That's all soundproof, so you can't actually get in that door. So we realise as well, like, it's a bit like, it's probably not for two staunch blokes like yourself, but you know what I mean? If we had
talking.
I sent Richie first.
And he actually is like, fuck, Rich, what have you got me into? I'm like, no, just keep following, let's go.
We can come in here and there's a sex swing hanging
Richie beat it.
You beat me to it, but yeah. Come on, mate, you'd be straight into it, head first.
Yeah.
It would be funny just to have something like that, like, have the podcast set up as well, but just something in that doorway, like a blow-up doll, just so when you walk around that corner, the first thing you see is that on the window, and then we see who comes in or like gets their phone out and rings us, like, am I in the right house?
Or he just like stops and just turns around and walks away.
We'd be sitting here, so you could hear like the footsteps forward, like coming at a normal pace, and then the footsteps back going at 30 kilometres an hour. Be fantastic.
But for us, I'm sure you would have been like, is that bloke taking his pants off?
He's getting excited about
get in.
You guys have grabbed the blow-up doll and fucking
That's what we came for. See you later, guys.
So look, obviously it's great to have you on. I want to start, I guess, first of all, by just we'll get into yourselves individually. I want to really know about your guys' journey and what's led you to where you are. But let's focus on the next step to begin with, because the first thing I want to understand is how it came about, and what the idea spurred from. And I guess, tell the people who don't know what the idea is behind it and what you guys are trying to achieve.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, I'll take over on that one. So I guess, like we said, in that first half now, we've sort of had a bit of a meet and greet, and we sort of share a similar story to how your podcast started. So leading into COVID, I wanted to do something for our community, basically. But so where that stemmed from, and I know we'll talk about our individual experiences a bit later, but I've always struggled with mental health, predominantly, mainly in my late adolescent years, going into that late teens, into my 20s.
Like the formative years, yeah.
Yep. Exactly, where I think most young men will, and generally statistically is shown that's that age group. But so anyway, through that, and through life, it's always been a passion, although it was never publicised and I've never put it out there in such a way, but I was talking to Simo about this a long time ago. It's one of those things I feel that once you've gone through mental health, you can read it in people. It's like another part of your mind opens up where if you haven't had those experiences, you can't quite see it in people.
Oh, definitely.
You're smiling, bro, saying, you know exactly what I mean. So then from that, obviously helped just friends and family over the years. Then leading into COVID, we had a mutual friend, not through mental health difficulties, but he passed away. And for our circle of friend group, that was a really tough time for a lot of us because he was a significant part of our friendship group, and it rocked us pretty hard.
As it would.
Yeah, it does, bro. And it was, one of those typical, one of those young lives taken too soon.
Yep.
And then off the back of that, only probably February, March. Going into April, so not even a month and a half later, I'm part of a gym down south, and so it's a mixed martial arts sort of fighting gym, with MMA, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu and all that. So
So what's your gym called?
So that's M16, Fine
M16,
Fitness. It's
yep.
run by a really good friend of mine, Miles Simpson.
Lovely.
So we're down south, little plug there for Miles.
Yep.
And the team down there got a great bunch of guys. They've got a great BJJ program, which I'm heavily involved in. I love training down there and that, but obviously got some superstars in the MMA scene and kickboxing and the rest of it, hence why I know Jed. We've figured out. So from that, in that April, it was the Easter Thursday leading up to Good Friday. One of our younger members of the gym took his life. And then that was just, really heavy to take, especially for Miles. He and I live within walking distance of each other.
Yeah.
And I asked him to come around, so he found out Friday morning. So being Good Friday, I just said, bro, come around and let's break some bread and have a beer and just chill.
Be there for each other.
Yeah, be there for each other and be in each other's presence. And that's what we did. And we just talked and, just felt that emotion at that time. As you do, you need to process. So with all that going on, that spark sort of started firing up. That you start getting that fire in your belly.
For sure.
And at that point, it was like in my head something needed to be done. Not on a big scale, but what my idea was is looking at my mate who's breaking down. We've just had 2 people close to us take their life, one take their life, another one not so much. And then, feeling that pain and that loss is like, what can we do? Or in me, it was like, what can I do? I don't want to see this guy, my mate, sitting in front of me, lose another person going through COVID, because I think to me that will be his breaking point.
Yep.
And somebody else's breaking point becomes his breaking point, becomes my breaking point. So in a way, how do I intervene here?
The domino effect is so real.
It is, bro. It is so real.
And, we've talked on this podcast, I don't know about how many times about, our concern about how there was never really any discussion apart from probably people like us who were aware of it or trying to do it about the real implications of what lockdown and all of those kinds of things were going to do to people.
Yeah.
And that flow-on effect of that. Has that just died?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Wonderful.
Fantastic.
That's right.
Fantastic. Well, the audio's still going,
still
so we'll just so it's not going to be video anymore. The computer's just completely Bruce Lee of death.
Yeah.
It might come back. We'll see how it goes. It probably just saw my face and just I've had enough of this guy.
Us both next to each other's a dangerous game.
There's some serious heads in general.
That's it.
So that. I think it wasn't talked about enough, and what you said there is the perfect thing. Is that you've got to start thinking about that. Where do you stop that from continuing to cascade?
Yeah, so that's where that intervention for me came in. And look, I'm a big believer, and this is probably my hippie my inner hippie spiritual side coming out. But I'm a big believer that when we've got problems and issues on our mind, even when we sleep, our subconscious is sorting that out. Throughout your sleep, whether you're open to it or not, but there's stuff happening in you, and you wake up some mornings and you just go, oh yeah, that's the answer to that. So that was one of these sort of situations that happened to me for that Easter Sunday. It was obviously consuming my thoughts. I'm sort of moping around the house a little bit, and literally Sunday morning I've woken up and I've just gone, I know what I've got to do. I need to get these blokes involved. I'm going to set up a social platform, and I'm just going to make it enough for the gym community, and I'll just pump it out through 40, 50 blokes and just say, look, this is what I'm going to do, and this is through that period we're all isolated, we're at home, we're not training, we might be going a bit stir crazy. So if we want to keep in touch and communicate rather than going through, like a virtual VR app or something like that, which some of them were good and some of them weren't, and, blah, blah, blah. Let's keep communication up through, I launched it on Instagram.
Yeah.
So I woke up, I rang this guy. I reckon I rang him first. And literally because, not so much because of his background, but because we are mates, and I just knew that he'd be like, yeah, fuck yeah, bro, let's do it.
Yeah, for sure.
And we've trained together before. There was a couple of other guys involved, and then I was like, you know what? And randomly I went, what about Brett? So Brett's our beautiful long-haired guy who's not here with us.
He's our sexual appeal.
He's the one that pretties up this.
Nice.
And he's very similar to me in the sense that he's got a strong passion for it, a lot of lived experience, and one of those blokes people just open up to.
Yeah.
So I was like, and he's also a member at the gym.
Yeah.
So there's a common theme here. All guys that have got lived experience or invested in this type of space for whatever reason and was a member of the gym. So I learned that, yep, I'm on. So cool, I've got 3 blokes now. I wanted 5, so it was going to be myself, Simo, Brett, Miles. I wanted Miles to be part of it because being the gym owner.
Yeah.
And another one of our mates, Steve Bean. Now, Miles was just broken at the time. He goes, mate, I've got too much on. Like, you're going on here. Maybe down the track. Cool. Sweet, bro. And our other mate, Steve, he was studying and has become since, he was studying medicine. So he had a lot going on with his studies and he was going to be doing an internship and be out of the state and this type of stuff. So fair enough, bro. You've got a life to live.
Yeah, that's it.
And again, the invitation was there, always there if you want to come back in at whatever stage.
Yeah, that still would have been like a cool angle. Like if he does any research on the antidepressants or whatever, that could have been a cool angle.
Yeah, well,
it still could be.
His whole thing was that he actually started psychology as well and went into medicine through the back door, so to speak, because he'd done a lot of volunteer work for Lifeline and his whole passion was mental health anyway.
Yeah.
But he just saw an opening to get into medicine and thought, hey, I'll give that a crack, and he got in.
Yeah,
but I think still, and not quoting him, and not speaking for him, but he has alluded that once he has finished medicine, that he does want to drive his career towards the mental health aspect.
Cool.
Where that takes him, I guess. So
Yeah.
So then so it ended up being us 3, didn't it?
Yep.
And then about a week later, I literally, and whether I can say this on podcast or not, but I literally just Googled our logo and just went, that will do.
Yeah.
And then just put it just literally screenshot and then put some words at the next step. Okay, that looks kind of cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's gone up as our image.
Fuck yeah.
I found a couple of things. I said to these boys, write a bio, write a bio each.
Yeah.
Let's do a bio for the page. I'm just going to launch it. And then Simo and I are very similar in our way of thinking, like, yeah, fuck it, we'll deal with the details later. Like, bang, let's get on with it. Bretty, not so much. Bretty likes to think things through and, oh, you sure? Maybe we should wait a little bit. And like, nah, Brett, we're doing it. So bang.
Yeah.
And within a week, I launched the page and we just started sharing it to our mates.
Yeah, killer.
And then it was very interesting and very humbling to watch it grow. Like, within a week, this many followers, and then within a month, this many followers. And then it went from just inviting our gym community to then like people outside of our circle starting to connect and bring it in and like, what are you fucking boys doing? Like,
and that must be the best feeling, because like you were saying earlier on, like before we went on air, like you were saying how like the impact that it makes for yourself, like you're going, fuck, it's actually reaching outside of the circle of like the gym now, like it's really cool.
It was really unexpected too, but I think there's 2 things happened here. Well, number one, our first thing that we always wanted to say is our group of friends is quite tight-knit, especially in the fight scene. If you've been smashing a bloke in the head for fucking an hour at training 3-5 nights a week, you get pretty close to them. Because if someone's punching you and you're punching them back and you're not getting angry at each other, you're going to become pretty good friends after some time. So you become this sort of, it's a family amongst a family, so to speak. So you form some really good friendships and bonds with those guys, and that extends out into your personal life as well. You go out for dinners, you start having beers, or you kick off down the beach or whatever it is you guys are into. You start formulating that then friendship group outside the gym. So in a way, the page was us going, you know what, during COVID, not everyone's going to have that support. So let's open up what we've got to other people, and those other people who don't have what we have can join us. So we're literally standing there with open arms going, if you need someone to lean on, come lean on us, because we're in this together. And I not trying to use the fucking, it wasn't that, we're all in this together. But anyway, that's what it was about.
It was an extension of our social group in a lot of ways, and like that's something that we've reflected on heavily, I think, between us, is that how lucky we are. We both come from the south of Adelaide. It's a very tight-knit community, and we both just went, geez, how blessed were we growing up that we had friends there that got around us and supported us. Let's just keep this moving and out and just push this outward. And it's that simple, really, because social support, mate, that's
and that's not even that common in some countries, or even in Adelaide. You don't necessarily always have these tight-knit social circles for a lot of people, and I think that's a massive problem that like we need to address really.
Yeah, loneliness is
and you know,
is the next big thing.
And I think that's what I was sort of going to segue into. So that was the second point I was going to make. I guess the fact that, and look, I know compared to say an influencer's page that might have tens of thousands of followers, you know, I think we're starting to breach, getting towards that 1,000K mark. You know, I'm thinking, to me, as a bloke who's got like maybe $500 followers on my, and probably $500. I've got in my savings.
You're rich.
You know, to start creeping up to 1,000 followers is for me is like, that's sick.
Yeah, it's a mad milestone.
It's crazy, man. But what it also tells me is that there's a need for it in the community. People are wanting to associate with this and get more knowledge and literacy, and I guess kind of understand, you know, is what I'm feeling normal? These blokes seem to be normalising it, and I can fucking relate to that. So yeah, this is normal, and that's what the whole page was sort of started to develop into, I guess. Then we started going down that mental health road. I mean, it was always there for the mental health, but we sort of went, right, let's focus on a clear message here.
Yeah, exactly.
And make sure we're doing the right thing by our community, because now we're sort of extending past our circle of friends.
Yeah, so you want it to really carry that message that you want to refine in on, I guess. Like you want it to, instead of just making it more so about like the gym or whatever it was, you were like, all right, let's broaden it up and really like go, all right, this is going to be about mental health for everybody, not just our...
100%.
Yeah.
But I think the big thing that we talk about all the time as well is if you look at the first kind of like mainstream conversation about mental health, it was very like what's the word I'm looking for? It was very like felt a little bit forced. It was kind of like commercialized. It was very like that corporate kind of structure. Like, you know, here's all the things. And I think what is really good and where we get feedback, and you guys will, and this podcast already will get awesome feedback, is because what it is people that you can actually relate to having the conversation.
100%.
You know, so when you've got someone like, you know, talking down to you about you need to do this to help your mental health, it just doesn't resonate with people.
Yeah.
But when you've got people that have lived experience and people that, you know, the conversation that they're having just sounds like a conversation that you could have with your friend.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you're like, well, if they're able to do this and they've got their own stories and they've come from all these different walks of life, then it can't be that fucking difficult. And I think that's the most amazing thing for us is that, you know, when we think about, you know, me and him will just talk about whatever's going on in our life. Then we just try and translate that same level of conversation, or that same kind of conversation onto what we have here with you guys.
Yeah.
Because that's what's missing. You know, I said this on a couple of episodes ago and it just keeps coming into my mind every time, is that I caught up with a mate recently and we were driving into the city and he was telling me about how he'd gone through a really bad breakup and he hit a low point, you know, started hitting substances again and doing things. And one of his mates reached out to him and they went to the pub and they sat there at the pub for like 5 hours. And he's like, I had a great time, took my mind off everything. But I did not for 1 second talk about the breakup or mention it. And he's like, so as soon as I got home, straight back to rock bottom again. Mm-hmm. Because it was great to have that escape. And I think that's a problem that we don't talk about or address enough, is that it's all well and good to go and catch up with your mate. And like you said, just be in each other's presence, which does help. But if you're not actually having the conversation about the things that are bothering you or getting to you, then they're just going to resurface the minute they get home, or maybe 3 days later or a week later, because you have to actually address those things. And I think that's the big hurdle that we want to try and help people overcome, is make the conversation at the pub about the footy just as free-flowing as how work's literally killing you, or you and your missus are completely on the rocks and you have no idea how you're going to get it back, whatever it may be. Yeah. As easy as it is to talk about how bad the Crows doing this year.
Yeah, look, I think that's the message behind, and this is what really we kind of did try and put some structure behind the next step after sort of just deciding that we were going to start it, was that there's a bit of a flow of, we want to get content out there and let people know, increase their literacy around mental health and suicide prevention, but then reduce stigma. So encouraging people to feel comfortable about having those types of conversations. Particularly, we are still quite male-centric because we see that there's a big problem or there's potential issues within sort of cohorts of men not communicating effectively with people, with each other, accessing services. But, you know, it does go across the board. It's encouraging these conversations between blokes. Like, you know, we're very blessed in that me and Richie will quite happily ring each other and be like, you know, I'm having a really rough time at work, but that's not for some people a normal experience. And so
Exactly
that was,
right, yeah.
that was part of the message as well. And then finally it's sort of this point of cold that if you need somebody to reach out to help you move from, you know, identifying things aren't great in my life, what can I do from here?
Yep.
That's where we want to facilitate and encourage people. So you can contact us and then we will be like, you need to potentially go and get a mental health care plan. Here's a psychologist that you can go and see, or we recommend, let's get this process start. And it's literally the next step.
Yeah,
Let's
that's
take
right.
the next
yeah,
step
okay.
with each
So
other.
it's also a page where people can, it's not just you're just saying, you know, your views, but people can actually reach out to your page as well.
And communicate with us. You know, we know that, and look, a lot of my research is based around this area in that, you know, often, and this is a real generalisation of male experiences of distress and mental health, but we often will sit on things and not communicate until it becomes a crisis point.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, where do I reach out to? You know, it can happen at 7 o'clock at night and you're like, well, you know, what do I do? And that ability to be able to message somebody and get some contact, get some advice and potentially mitigate
and
that
get
trajectory.
sound advice though too. You know?
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes, you know, if you've got a friend circle or mates that aren't familiar or have that knowledge and
Yeah.
literacy that Simo's talking about, and you have a mate open up to you, like I know I would have having my mental health difficulties, but like, fuck, bro, I don't know what to do.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and
Sometimes
it's
you just
a
like, what do I
daunting
do?
experience. So I guess the knowledge that we have now, and the reason why the page is there, so you can reach out and DM, is to hit up some guys in that time of need. Like, look, I don't want to talk to Timmy because Timmy's going to just go fucking harden up, bro. And I've heard these guys do this, so hang on, maybe I'll just touch base with them and see what there is or what is the next step.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is just encouraging people because there are services out there, and I think sometimes it's really frustrating. But you know, I'm a psychologist and I sit in the space, and sometimes you're like, well, there are things that you can do, and people don't know about them, and so sometimes it's just promoting that information
or a service, like a service that is an organisation, right? Which obviously you guys in a way are an organisation, but like for me, looking at what you guys are doing, if it was me trying to reach out, I would probably feel personally more comfortable using you as a starting point, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
So I think that's where you guys can, you know, nestle in that, like we're able to just have that really open and free flowing. It's not going to seem clinical.
No.
It's going to, you know what I mean? It may be in a way, but it's going to seem like really like that. And exactly what you said, it's not. Because circling back to the whole pub conversation thing, you know, I've witnessed it myself. That whole mate tries to say something about, oh, mate, this is whatever, and gets told, oh, we're not here to fucking talk about your problems, mate. Shut up and drink your beer.
Yeah.
And everyone has a big laugh about it, and then that just gets internalized and possibly never spoken about before, as you said, it hits crisis point. But yeah, I think like you guys will sit there perfectly. I'm guessing that's what you're trying to do as someone that's like, and it is very easy as well to send a message on you're already on your Insta, you're already on your Facebook, whatever it is. So sending that message like, guys, this may sound stupid, all the classic things that you're going to hear in that first message, like this is what I'm feeling, and just getting a nice, easy going answer and assistance back makes it feel so much more accessible than ringing that helpline or whatever. You know, that might be the thing that you guys end up suggesting, saying, hey, look, we think you should also go and do this, or, you know, go and start the mental health plan and then circle back to us, and then here's some other things you can do. But it seems like, I think what you guys are doing is a great little entry level thing just to take that next step. We're going to do that many fucking times.
That's literally what the name was based
how it
around.
came.
Yeah, that's really cool,
And we
man.
stripped
Yeah.
it back to that because, look, in my position and through my life experience, I got lived experience of mental health and suicidal ideation, and I've attempted to take my own life before, and you know, there's all those sorts of, that's one aspect, but then I also sit in a different aspect of as a researcher and a psychologist. And I see, we see the gap that's being it's trying to be bridged at the moment, but it's a very difficult one. And so that was really where we targeted, because we're like, hang on, there's a middle ground here that needs to happen. It is an extensive process sometimes to putting your hand up and saying, shit, I'm not traveling too well, to actually being able to get professional help. So
Yeah.
where's that middle ground?
Yeah, exactly
And
right.
so
So placing yourself in that middle ground is actually probably a really good thing to do.
yeah,
right?
and look, and that's where I see the best support can come from. You know, we're a touch point.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna bloody be your psychologist theoretically.
Yeah.
But I can identify with you, potentially give you a couple of tips and tricks to get through this next point until you get to see that mental health professional, and then mate, your journey's
And then
you're on the way.
And I think a lot of people have that perception of us. They go, oh man, like you said, they can reach out. You can almost feel us, touch us, and we have that conversation. We're not just there for you to ring up on a phone and who knows who you're going to get, and then be pouring out, just hang on, can you hold the line a minute? We've just got another 20.
Like you've got a face to it almost. Like,
got a face to it.
Yeah, I'll fucking ring you if you let me and you're struggling. I'll literally get on the phone and be like, "Hey, bro, how you going? Do you want to have a chat?
Yeah,
let's talk about this shit." And that's and Richie's the same. It's that raw touch that you like, and it can. I think that's the beauty of lived experience, and that's something that we really try and drive through the page. Is that I'm not putting my psychology hat on per se. It's always going to inform me, but we're coming at this from our raw experiences as well, which I think's the best way to do things often, particularly at that first.
Because if you've lived it, then that's the best experience you can get, really.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly what I was just about to say. In terms of connecting with someone, you're going to connect to them more through lived experience than psychology, right? Because it's you're able to talk through them because you've felt what they have and understand what they're feeling. So you're connecting with them on that level, and then using the tools of psychology to make sure that you're not giving them the wrong advice or whatever as well on top of that, right?
Well, I mean, that's something, with conversations I'll have behind the scenes. So generally for me, my experience behind the scenes of the page, it will generally start off with someone, and it's amazing too, like I just want to chuck this part in, but the age demographic is so vast, we talk about these different age groups from a statistical standpoint, but the people that we have DMing us from the back, from behind the scenes of the page is anywhere from like 16 at the moment up to almost edging on early 50s, and what amazes us is that first connection from like someone in their 40s. And you think, wow, like, I'm so glad you're reaching out to us first, but how did you not know that there's organisations out there like Lifeline, Beyond Blue, there's all these other support pages you could go to right now, and it's like it's not in the forefront of someone's mind. Yeah. And then they've heard about us through a friend of a friend and thought, oh, look, I was just talking to someone, they said you boys are doing this, and what, am I normal? It was like, yeah, bro, you are normal. You are. And thank you for reaching out to us. And that's probably our biggest message first. We always thank you for reaching out, because that is the hardest part for most blokes. To actually admit, hey, there's something not right with me here, and I need to look into this. I need to drill into this a little bit deeper, and then, okay, how do I do that? And I was speaking to old mate at the pub, and he mentioned you boys. So that's why I'm reaching out. What do we do now?
Yeah. Well, you guys also... Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off there. You guys have also kind of got almost like a stigma-less way of doing it as well, right? So because it's just a social media page and whatever else, then so when people are reaching out, because sometimes people don't want to admit that they are needing to call Beyond Blue or something, right? That feels like too much, because then they're admitting that they need help. Whereas if they're messaging you and saying, am I normal or is this whatever, then they haven't had to jump off the cliff, so to speak, right? They've just been able to like kind of dip a toe in of that conversation, which is still, and it starts that process.
It's a perfect way of explaining it, bro. That's a great analogy.
It's a gentle move forward, and like,
which is better than zero
it's
fucking progress.
So much better. And
I hate to say it, but it's the next step.
It is. But
I think sometimes as well, and we'll see it within the page, and we do sort of assess the situation, and sometimes Richie will go, hey Simo, can you please take this one over, you've got a little bit more experience, or I'll be like, Richie, I think you're fine with that. And it's a lot of the time it's just people sort of voicing their concerns, trying to sort of position themselves, and then you sort of just go, look, you're actually not dissimilar to what a lot of people are experiencing. And once they start to understand that, they're actually already off to the races and they're good to go.
And on the critical ones, and obviously it comes through in forms of conversation, and there's invitations, we call them, in messaging. So when someone's really struggling, they'll construct sentences, I guess, in a way, or they'll write sentences where you go, that are alarm bells for us because of some training, and secondly, because of our lived experience. And you go, hang on, this is not a text. This is not a text communication anymore. This needs to be addressed,
one-on-one.
One-on-one.
Yeah.
So at that point, we will literally, I know I do, I'll just like, hey, bro, look, just out of some of the things we're talking about, would you mind if I just gave you a buzz? Do you want to do a video call, or would you rather take my number and you can call me? And it's interesting. Most will go, yeah, let's have a video call then. Cool. And one bloke in particular, I was up with him for the next 2 hours, but that consisted of actually making what we call a suicide safe plan to get him all right through to the morning.
Yeah,
you know, so that's how critical it can be at times. So that's why we take these messages quite seriously, and we're looking for certain things in those conversations. And thankfully, we got that gentleman through the night. And part of our plan was that he would, once he got through the night, he'd call me in the morning to tell me that he was okay, because obviously we need to get a support group around and blah, blah. I won't go into what we do but in that regard, but once I knew he was safe and that he was at no risk of harming himself, then, all right, this is where other people now take over, your support takes over, and all I need you to do is a little bit for my own self, but so that I know that I've done the right thing, but so I know he's safe as well and he's got through the night.
Yeah.
And I don't need to action anything else, because if I haven't heard from him, then it's time to try and make that connection again. And if I can't, maybe we need to look at ringing an emergency service.
Yeah, because it would be hard not to. It would be hard not to go, hold him in it. I'm not hearing from him.
Yeah.
And like expect the worst.
Yeah.
It'd be really hard.
I don't sleep very well sometimes after those types of conversations. You do always.
Absolutely,
And you don't. So it's I don't know how I've digressed. I like doing this. Sorry, boys. You might have to.
That's all right.
We're the tangent.
So I've digressed massively there,
king.
but that just sort of gives you a bit of a dynamic of, we can go from literally just giving you a bit of information to having to get you safe through the night. And it has been done. And we talked about this, it's those pivotal little points that when things like that happen behind the scenes, you go, I'm so glad we're doing this page, because it is making a difference. And that one person, knowing that he's safe now, we've saved a life potentially.
Yeah, man.
Then it's paid off in full to me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So let's dive in a little bit more about you two personally, then we'll circle back and I guess have a talk about the stuff that we all want to achieve, I guess, moving forward, and look at it from that angle. So obviously you mentioned before, Simo, you actually have a background in this. You have finished a graduate in psychology, is that correct?
Yeah, so I'm a registered psychologist. I've got my master's in psychology, and I'm currently doing a PhD looking at suicide in men, primarily in the construction industry. So yeah, that's my background in the area. But also sort of come from the reason why I went into psychology was obviously based on my own experiences of mental health and suicide growing up. I think it's always been a part of my life, unfortunately. I've lost, the last count, 10 people in my life, close friends and family, to suicide. And so it's just seems to be a fairly, constant and
way too constant.
Yeah, but I've always been really interested in what drives somebody to get to that point, and then sort of experiencing my own sort of mental health struggles and then struggles with suicidal ideation, and what drove that sort of made me want to dig a little bit deeper. And I worked as a construction worker for bloody 8 years and did everything sort of under the sun, every shit job that there was, and sort of saw how men within those types of areas and industries that potentially really embrace traditional masculine sort of styles of behaviour.
You would definitely expect that, wouldn't you?
Yeah. And how that influenced their communications and how much some of those guys struggled. And then that just really drove me to go, well, look, maybe a person that's, not a traditional person that, you would expect to study psychology. How about I get into it and see what happens? And so left my job and somehow found myself here talking on a podcast.
Gone from there.
But so, and that's primarily what I do. So I sit in a research space 4 days a week looking at why there's a high level of suicide. And then I spend a day a week at a male specific psychology practice called the Bolton Brothers in Kent Town. And so, just really sit in that men's health space, and it's all about suicide prevention.
That's good, man. I actually didn't want to get into, because you were saying you were focusing on men's mental health.
Yep.
Now, something that I've wanted to bring up on the podcast for a while now, but we haven't had the opportunity to really go deep into this specifically. But the men's mental health area of like fatherhood and the whole court system and how it seems to favour the females and whatnot. I just wanted to get your opinion about that, and how common is it that you find that that fathers in those situations are coming to you with the problems or their problems?
Yeah, look, it's a really, really challenging area because obviously, you can't, we're not, as a psychologist, I'm not here to change the court system. That's for, government and social movements and things like that. But it is a really common theme within mental health or suicide crisis for guys, relationship breakdowns, family court issues, all those sorts of things. And so, it is a common theme and something that a lot of guys really struggle to deal with. And so, you can see patterns within that. Look, it's not the only thing. There's a lot of other determinants of mental health or suicide risk. But it is something that, look, I think they're starting to take awareness of it. I mean, even the domestic violence movement that you see, which is primarily towards, domestic violence is primarily men towards women.
Yeah.
But they're also starting to see that potentially, hang on, we need to do something about this so that it doesn't get to that point. And is the court system part of that? Is access to children part of these sorts of drivers? And so, look,
I guess because it's very case specific as well.
It is, and it's super complicated. Look, probably the most interesting thing about my research is, how interrelated so many different things are, and it's multifactorial, and that's literally my favorite word. Trying to tease apart and disentangle what's leading to these sort of outcomes is really difficult to do. But
and I think if you could answer that, like if you could break it down on one specific thing, we'd all be making bucket loads of cash. But that's why no one will ever put their finger on that one thing. And forgive me if I'm speaking out of term here, but we can do all the research and we can do all the awareness we can, but unless we're focusing on such a vast range amount of topics and we're nailing every one of them, we're not going to get all the way there, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, well, that's because mental health is so nuanced anyway. So you might have two fathers that are both going through a court case, but their state of mind can be so different. So
I think but on the flip side of that, look, research, and I can speak from experience, research is really trying to get that fine-grained look at things. Look, until recently, there was a real big push against a gendered approach to understanding mental health or suicide, but it's starting to be accepted. And look, that goes for LGBTQI communities as well. We're starting to look at those as a cohort and a population, which for me is exciting because my experience is potentially different to Richie's. Richie's experience of mental health is probably different to mine, but we do in some ways sit under a similar banner. We're both blokes, and so if we can do whatever we can to create a deeper understanding of what's driving mental health outcomes, what's driving suicide within these people, we're going to save lives.
Yeah, because if you can stop it at that earlier point, I guess, or help it at that earlier point, instead of it getting to a point where you need to get to the fine grain, like you were saying, then that's where you're probably going to make the biggest impact.
And it's literally coming at both angles. So you're seeing, social change and social policy change. And so there's massive drivers of suicide, socioeconomic status, childhood trauma, all those sorts of things. And so can we try and address those from a change in government level, more equality, all those sorts of things. But then when it gets to this crisis point as well, how do we look at this nuance? And if we can come from both angles, that's when we're going to start really saving lives.
Yeah, for sure.
And look, it's an exciting period in suicide and mental health. It's starting to create awareness. I mean, I'm sitting here having a conversation at 8 o'clock at night with 3 other blokes. It's changing.
Yeah.
It's exciting to be a part of. I'd like it to fucking change faster. So, when, we're still seeing fucking massive issues.
But it is, just to drill down on what you said for a second, if someone said to me, even let's say 18 months ago, right? That in 18 months' time you'll be, because we had maybe whispered about a podcast at that point in time. Yeah. And I've always, like you guys said, the thing for me, why we've wanted to focus on this in our podcast is just because it's been something that I've been passionate about. Talking to you guys before we went on air about that friend that, you know, I've just always been that kind of person that's just wanted to try and help. I've always understood things for some reason. My dad had a really, really bad childhood and you know, I took a lot of value out of his experience and his ability to just keep marching forward. So I've just had such an awareness of these things. So for us, it was about just that passion. Then we wanted to translate it into these conversations. But even with that passion, if someone had said to me 18 months ago, in 18 months' time, you'll be on your podcast having guys that are doing the awesome stuff that you guys have just told us about, you know, you just wouldn't have even thought it was possible. Yeah, so as much as it's probably you're right, it can always be quicker. But the fact that we are doing this is just an absolute testament to that. It's super funny because I literally sat there, sorry to push it on you, Richie. Right. I had a conversation with my mum the other day. So I was diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder when I was 14. Yep. And like, you know, back then it was like a foreign language. You know, my mum didn't know what it was. But now, you know, I could go out, and I do go out and have talks with, you know, construction workers, community groups, and I say OCD, and I'll be like, does anyone know what that means? And everyone's like, obsessive compulsive disorder, you know? Yeah. And it's crazy to watch that, you know, we are starting to move forward, and it's happening at a rapid rate, which is... It is happening a lot quicker than exciting. What it was five years ago. Mate, it's just different 6 months ago. Yeah. And so it's starting to happen, which is super cool. For me, I just... This guy shadows himself a little bit, so every now and then I like to pull him out of the shadows and put the light on him. But I like to hide. Did you hear on the microphone? No, fuck off. That wasn't me. But so I'll pull him out of the shadow for a bit. But the work that this guy does behind the scenes, and it's really nice to start seeing him getting some recognition. Not here on the page. You know, this is shits and giggles for us. Believe it or not, this is our volunteered, our passion, our free time. Our free time, I put in inverted commas. And it is a real balance, and it does cause tension every now and then, believe me, in your own personal life. But of course, where this guy, for me, in the last, let's say, 18 months, has been and is now, you know, it's just amazing to watch him grow with the confidence and him with his research, and he's putting all this stuff together, and he's just owning this space right now. And for me, he's becoming a pivotal part in our community from a standpoint, some of the connections he's making and all that type of thing. I'm just fucking glad to have him on the page. I'm just like, in a way, I'm like, forgot to tell you I was leaving, Rich. That's cool too.
And do you feel like it's given you an outlet to apply?
No, well, I think this is the best thing about, like, look, I have a lot of conversations with people about there never being something that you can do that's that doesn't give something back. And look, the next step for me is it touches community. It's very, being in research and even as a clinician is very elitist sometimes, and you feel slightly disconnected, whereas this, it's raw, it's real, and it's probably...
Puts your feet back on the ground.
And it makes it sits, you know, to sit within community where I think the changes are most effective is what's exciting for me, and it just pulls you back down. Exactly right, pulls you back down to ground. You know,
gets you dirty in the trenches again, gets you on the cold face.
It's so true, and look, and having conversations with people, you know, it's very easy to be an elitist and write your academic papers and you know, fundamentally it doesn't get read by community.
No, that's right. Yeah, you talk about these are the things that could help.
Yeah.
But then this is you guys actually implementing something that helps.
And look, me and Richie have great conversations because Richie probably doesn't even realise that I'm doing it to him, but, you know, I'll be, you know, fostering ideas and getting them out of my own head onto Richie. Poor old Richie's analysing him and then giving him back to me in a
dumbed down way.
It's not in a dumb, in a pragmatic, effective system. Yeah. And I go, shit, cheers, bro. I'll go get my doctorate.
And it works though. And he has. I can think of a couple of critical points where we've had those conversations, and I'm like, yeah, that's heaps like blah blah blah. And he's like, That's
shit,
fucking perfect.
Yeah.
God, I love talking to you. Thanks, bro. I got to go. I'm like, shit, that ended quickly.
Yeah.
But he'll call back like a week later and he goes, oh, bro, thanks for that conversation the other week because that helped me nail something. I'm like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and fundamentally that was always my passion. I think very similar to the way Richie created the Next Step is the reason why I went from a very well-paying job to being a student again was because I went, if I can save one life, that's, everything's been worthwhile.
It's more than the money, isn't it?
It is, look, I'm not going to lie to you. I like getting paid. Of course,
yeah.
But, the fact is that you can walk away and sometimes sit and go, shit, that person's alive because of my intervention or me having that communication. And so I think that's what's so cool about the Next Step and talking, going out to communities and doing these things. That's the only thing it's what gets me up in the morning.
Yeah, that's killer, man.
And to a degree, I'm speaking on behalf of you, but I know I feel it, but it's almost a little bit therapeutic for us as well.
Sure.
Because of our own lived experiences and, the Next Step helps us process some of those things. And a lot of the posts that we'll do, which I'll do, but the boys will jump on it. So a lot of the scripted text writing is just literally me in my shed out the back by myself, maybe doing a bit of workout or something, or I'm just disconnected from the family just because I need half an hour just to unpack my day.
Yeah.
And that is what's just in my head at that time. So that's raw. That's that feeling. It's like, that's not me like reading or getting inspiration off of somebody else's post or looking at Beyond Blue or Lifeline going, what are they fucking doing this week? That shit is literally me.
Organic.
It's organic. It's real. It's like me sitting out the shed going, oh, fuck, I've had a bad day or maybe I should reach out to someone. And I'm like, shit, maybe we should tell our followers that we're still here and they can reach out to us if they need.
Yeah. So you're almost applying it.
Flip it.
Yeah.
If you see what I mean. So a lot of those posts are, apart from the videography sort of those video posts that we do, we're obviously trying to get a direct message out, but it's more about what's on our mind. Suicide rates are on my mind. Oh, let me do a post about suicide rates. Reaching out's on my mind. We'll just do a post on reaching out. Fuck, I wish I'd checked in with that bloke today. Oh, just do a check-in post,
Yeah.
So that's where it's driven for me, and that's where that therapeuticness comes from. And I guess drives the passion for it as well. So,
Sorry, you've said it yourself. How many times you've been having a bad week, and then we have a podcast, and it just realigns you.
Yeah, man.
Whether it's us doing, because we do everything from conspiracy to us just talking absolute shit for an hour. Like we try to keep it as interesting, and then we have a heavy focus on the mental health stuff as well. But I'll leave here quite often after, we do it on Wednesday night. It's that perfect sort of hump day thing. You can have a shit start to your week, and I come here and do a podcast, and I go home just feeling better because you just had a chance to have a conversation. It's that whole thing.
And it's, look,
I'm completely the opposite. I'm a massive introvert. So I'm exhausted.
Well, thanks for coming out today.
And so there's two things here. So the first thing is that my old man's a retired medico, and we were having a conversation about a particular family member, and I was saying, some of their conversations come across a bit pessimistic. They're very negative, it's more about health and their ailment, and the first thing you ask is, hey, how are you? And then they just go, and this and that. And you sit there and go, okay. And you kind of go, oh, really? It's not that bad. But the old man goes, yeah, but psychologically, and he's not a psychologist, he's coming from a medical standpoint. Yeah. He goes, we got to understand, Rich. And we do understand it, but it's just in such layman's terms. And here's your message about reaching out and why reaching out is so important. Is that by someone just opening up and expressing and just verbalizing it, it's a form of therapy. Whether you know it or not. It's actually releasing and letting out that vocabulary enough to go, oh, I feel better.
Yeah, because you get that sympathy, like almost not sympathy, but you get that reaction from the person going, oh, that sucks, your knee's sore or you're having a bad day or whatever.
Yeah.
And even if they're not necessarily like giving you tools or whatever, options to solve your problem, just telling it like you were saying. Helps.
You could almost, and I don't recommend this, but you could almost get the same effect by standing in the mirror and verbally saying it to yourself. Yeah. It's just more interactive with someone, of course.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the same therapeutic effect is going to happen if you're talking to somebody or an object or a dog or a cat or whatever your coping mechanism may be, by opening up and expressing and letting it out, that's therapeutic enough to go, I've let that off.
Yeah.
You've almost let it go, and it gives your brain a chance now to reprocess the next thing.
Yeah.
It's not going to solve like an underlying mental illness or difficulty. No,
Right, but it's just
don't
a
take
part
me
of
wrong
that.
there.
Yep.
But it's part of that decommissioning, I guess, and just letting it out. You know?
A lot of what I do in clinical practice is people actually often know where they want, what they need to do, how to solve their own problems.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is just literally
Guiding them there.
Yeah, just pointing them in a slightly different direction. They know where they're going. A lot of the time, you can almost see the pennies dropping while they're speaking about it.
Yeah.
And look, I do it with Richie. I do it with my mum. Sometimes I'll be talking. I mean, the funniest one for me is, as a psychologist, you think that your mental health should be top. But it's not. My mental health's not great regularly. And, you know, I remember ringing my mum and I'm like, you know, I think something's wrong, you know, like, I'm getting watery eyes and I'm getting heart palpitations and my hands are shaking. And then I just went, I'm having a panic attack. And I was like, oh, cool, mum, I'll see you later. Like, and it was literally just me verbalizing what's going on. I went, oh, that's what I
This is
I
what
just,
it is, yeah.
And that's half the battle.
Yeah,
It's just communicating, getting it out there, and then being like, oh, fuck, that's what I need
And then
to
once
do.
you knew what it was, you start thinking about what was the trigger, and then you go, okay, that was the trigger. Okay, how am I going to work through that? All right, and then you're using all the things that you know to your benefit, but it doesn't stop. And I think that's such an important, you know, thing is, and Mark Ryan, who was on here recently, you know, we asked him like, you know, what are the things that you do, and you know, how do you feel now that you've got all these tools or whatever? He's like, you know, every day is still just as much of a battle. He's like, you know, I think you mentioned it before we went on air, and it's probably a perfect time to bring it up now. You know, it's about trying to keep yourself along the small peaks and troughs as opposed to the massive highs and massive lows, or sometimes no highs and massive lows, you know? So, and I think that's such an important thing is that, going back to something else you were saying as well, about, you know, one of the biggest things that I've understood about mental health is that isolating feeling that it creates, right? And that a lot of people who start to get on top of it, whatever way they find that camaraderie or that solidarity with people, that's that next step. We're gonna fucking do that many times.
Same. That's why we fucking named it.
Right? It's so good because, you know, that's the thing that is probably the most daunting is when they get into that mind space of no one understands what it is that I'm going through. That this is just special to me, which it is. It's not saying that it's not, but that feeling twisted slightly differently is what nearly every other person has experienced on some level, and that we should find comfort and solace in that, and that's what should make us want to reach out, because we do all experience it or have experienced it or know people who have and have lived through that with them, whatever it is. So it's trying to overcome that is so much of the battle, because it's very isolating to feel like, and you know, a lot of people get into that mindset of like, you know, I'm dumb, I'm stupid for feeling this way as well. So then that's even like another thing that you're having to deal with. So trying to bridge that gap of like, hold on a second, this is all perfectly normal, and I can have that conversation with someone and it's all okay is a massive thing.
Well, yeah, Simo and I are looking at this going, who's jumping at the chance? And I'll talk from my lived experience on this one. And it sort of goes back again to what we sort of talked in about that bit of that half an hour, and we'll get to that peaks and troughs part but let me just start back front of house here for a bit. So my mental health difficulties stemmed from trauma as a kid, right? So they lay dormant. So at 3 years old, believe it or not, my first memory from a child is a traumatic experience.
Yeah.
Right? And even to the point, it's like my parents would be like, you can't remember that. You're only 3 years old. And when I explain it perfectly and I can visualise and explain colours and who's sitting where and what was happening, and it was just, you know, at the age of 18 when I was at my deepest low of depression, my mum's jaw just hitting the ground going, what the fuck? Like, how do you remember that?
Yeah, because it happens early, man. It really does.
So that trauma lay dormant in me for quite some time. And when I say quite some time, you know, up until I was about 18, 19. All right, so it sat dormant for 15 years. But there was a trigger that brought that on. But the funny thing is the way that trauma shaped me as my character, my persona over those 15 years.
Yeah, wow.
Because of the things that were happening around me at that age, at such an influential age of, you know, when you're absorbing like a sponge, you know, here I am in the middle of a family tragedy at, you know, probably needing love and attention and needing all those things that a normal 3-4-year-old needs. And I've got every person around me grieving. And almost probably being pushed to friends and aunties and that, and stemming out of that became a real sense and need for attention.
Yeah.
So as I grew older,
that only manifested more.
Manifested massively, bro, to the point that I almost knew it was not right, but it was the only way I could get a validated response and feel like I was being loved or nurtured or I had people's friendship, you know?
Yeah.
And I think of, you know, classic times, and especially my early teens, where I was like, man, you're such a fucking dick. You know, you just had to be the fucking class clown all the time, or you had to fucking be the dickhead who did that at a party, you know? But why was I doing it? Because it was learnt behaviour. It was learnt behaviour from such a young age. I was doing it without even knowing I was doing it.
Yeah.
And then it took the rejection and the breakup of the first love, the first girlfriend, that really fucking pulled that or brought it to my face.
Yeah,
and
made you deal with it.
Yeah, it made me deal with it, exactly. Now, going through that, you don't just wake up one morning and bang, you're in it. But all those things slowly start to happen. You know, you start disconnecting from your social or your social friend, your friends group, then slowly from family, and then literally I pulled myself out of the family dynamic and I isolated and lived by myself. Side note, worst thing someone with depression can do.
Yeah.
You need all the love and support and people around you at that critical part of your life, because when you're already experiencing negative emotion and suicide ideation and having attempts on your life with no support around you, well, you're gonna be pretty successful, right?
Yeah.
So, a big message here for me is that if you've got a friend experiencing depression, or you can see them on that sliding scale, just get around them straight away and be persistent. They will introvert, some of them won't need help, all right? But some will break at some point and say, "You got me," or "There is something going on here. I need help."
Yeah.
What am I doing? So look, yeah, and through that process, especially from my lived experience in that depressive state, a key thing that I can really relate to, and I can see it in people now, is those peaks and troughs. So the lows are the lowest of lows that can be to the point of suicide ideation and not wanting to be here and I'm going to take my life and things like this, to the point of like peaking, like being the happiest, most lights up the room. But then, you know, depending on how severe the depression is, an hour later, you wouldn't be knowing, but they'll be up here and then they're crying in a ball in the corner of the room. You know? So this is where that peaks and troughs. So trying to balance that out and turning those big waves into ripples that we were talking about, and getting them back onto that constant.
That's such a powerful saying. Like when you were saying that earlier on today, I was just like, I fucking love that, man.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
And one of the things that I've talked about with my partner all the time, and I think is a huge part of understanding it as well, is that life, I believe, has to have both, right? Because you don't have an appreciation. I'm big on the whole like yin and yang thing, right? Is that the shit that I've gone through in my life that's led me to the person that I am today is because of those things, right? Yeah. And that I wouldn't have an appreciation for the good stuff that happens or the good feelings that I have when good stuff happens. I really soak them in and enjoy them because I understand how, you know, fragile things can be and how important it is. So it's like, you know, and you see it from, you know, the kids that grow up and have what they would deem as everything, but how often that doesn't pay off in the end when they haven't had to go through, endure any sort of actual struggle and everything's just handed to them and they're not getting any life lessons along the way. That normally manifests itself into something, you know, bad for them when the reality of life kicks in at 22, 23 when they're out on their own, like all of those kinds of things. So I feel like understanding the way that I try to translate that is that, so when you are in that moment or when you're having those things happen, to stop it from becoming a massive, trough, is understanding that I'm going to bounce back from this and the ripple's going to, you know what I mean? I'm going to come back up here again. Yeah. And to the other thing is like, you can't either control when that's going to happen or how it's going to happen. So because a lot of the trap that my partner gets caught in, and that I've seen a lot of people, they're constantly trying to prevent that. So then that becomes that anxiety, right? So the anxiety is, well, I don't want this to happen. I don't want this to happen. But it's like, and I say this stupidly all the time. I'm like, well, that possibility that you're worried about could happen. I'm like, but a dragon could also come down from the sky and burn everything. I'm like, that one might be more far-fetched, but I'm like, but that is on the realm of possible things that could occur. And then here's the one that you've said, and then there's a million things in between that. Are you honestly going to be able to cater for all of those? In this plan that you're trying to concoct in your brain at the moment, and I can see it, the cogs turning in your head, and it's really bothering you, and you're starting to have a panic attack or whatever it may be, is because you're trying to think about all the possible things and how you're going to control them. You're fucking not. And the quicker you can come to terms with that in a good way and be like, you know what, I'm going to address that when it happens, and I'm going to address it in a way that doesn't become a massive trough. Yeah. That's the whole thing, man. It's freeing when you get to that point of being like, I'm just going to deal with that dip when it happens. It's such a better way of approaching things, I feel. And it's trying to get people along that journey as well, and ready to handle it, so that it doesn't become a massive trough.
I think as well, you kind of touched on 2 points there, and look, we got a really interesting, like Western society has a concept of happiness, and it's in a lot of parts it's false. We've got this perception that we need to be sitting at this, it's the peak, just everything's, I'm happy. I bounce out of bed in the morning,
Once I get there, I'll be happy.
I'll be happy, and I'm cracking along. But that's such a westernized, and it's really an unhelpful and unhealthy concept. Is that, fuck me, if you're running at that becomes your status quo again. So where's the next
exactly right
high?
Yeah.
And so you do need to, but then when you're talking about that fear of dropping into the trough, it's being present. And presenteeism and acceptance and commitment therapy is based off this concept of happiness isn't the peak that we need to be sitting at, is sitting within that moment and enjoying that space and being comfortable. And look, I always encourage people to do things like self-care and go to the gym, eat well, sleep more, have sex, whatever it is that makes you feel good, do it to avoid going into the trough if you can. But it's almost learning that ability to be like, I will come out of this, and and it's okay to not be fucking happy all the time. And just be comfortable with that. Like,
and I think in a roundabout way, this is what we were talking about before, is that it's about addressing emotion as blokes, being able to be a bit vulnerable and know that it's okay to feel emotion, whether it is a happy or sad. We don't have to run on happy the whole time. We don't have to run on a physical macho sort of...
Yeah, you don't have to say toughen up every fucking half an hour.
Or even be that hyper masculine man where I'm just going to fucking do this all fucking day and I'm going to stay on this fucking level. And then I'm never going to I'm not going to cry because I'm not a sissy boy, and trying to run at 100,000% all the time. So just backing it up a notch and just going, you know what, like Simo said, it's cool just to sit in the present here and feel how I'm feeling. And if I don't feel heaps good, well, that's fine. It is okay not to feel good. We're human beings. We're supposed to feel that emotion, But at some point, the brain's going to kick in and go, you know what, man? You've had enough of feeling shit. Let's get you back up.
Give you some perspective again.
And then that comes through doing things as well.
It's that... So... The ripple thing is so good, and we're gonna talk about this all the fucking time. We're gonna have to start a new thing called fucking ripple.
The ripple effect.
The ripple effect. But it's like, that. So when those things come along, that you on the scale of 0 to 10, that emotion gets you to a 3 or 4 every time, right? So when you're mad at a 3 or 4 level. Tell the missus to piss off because she's being a dickhead. Walk into the other room, and then you guys are over it in 20 minutes. As opposed to you've just put 4 holes in your fucking house that your mum owns that you don't even fucking pay rent in, and now you know what I mean. Like those. So, and when you're sad, you might tear up and you might have a little bit of a cry, and you ring your mate and you get upset, but you're not completely out of it. Unable to get out of bed for 4 days. So people understand. I'm allowed to have these emotions, but it's about how much I let it grab hold of me and completely dictate my life for the next 24 hours. 4 days, 2 weeks, 6 months, whatever it may be, right? And I think that's such an important thing as well, is that I think people get caught up into that idea of like, having great mental health is being happy all the time. That's not fucking it at all. No, it's about being able to manage all of the things, because people who have great mental health can have or, you know, a great understanding of it and a handle of it can still completely do a fucking 180 at any minute in time.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things we talk about, and I encourage everybody out there, you can just Google it, have a look at the mental health continuum. The whole idea is that everybody has mental health, and we often categorize people as having a mental health condition, therefore they have poor mental health.
Yeah.
I've got obsessive compulsive disorder. That doesn't mean that I don't have good mental health, you know, and vice versa. Someone can have depression or and vice versa. Someone doesn't have to have a clinical diagnosis, can really have really shitty mental health. So it's on a scale.
It's like the armor that you build up and the techniques that you can use. Yeah.
And look, and that's so much of what we're trying to do now as clinicians, particularly towards men, is give them skills and tips and tools so that, you know, you're like, shit, I'm sliding down into the trough a bit. You know, how do I pull myself back up out of this? Or what can I do to mitigate the drop? You know, it's still okay to fucking want to lie on the couch for 4 days if that's what you need. I mean, that's one of my most effective coping strategies. To switch my phone off and watch my favourite movies for a day because I'm burnt out, you know.
But if in that time when you're laying there, it's not suicidal ideation,
No,
it's at its worst. It's you laying there being like, man, I fucking need this. That's a whole different. So it is what you need as opposed to like, I can't physically do anything else.
And it's finding that middle ground between the two is going, look, I'm justified in feeling this way, and I need this time. I'll be coming back out of this soon and getting there.
I see where you're going with that. And for any listeners that are at that point where they are sitting on the couch and it's not about I need this, it's just that I cannot physically get off the couch because I've got suicide ideation.
Yeah.
Please reach out at that point. You need your support group around you.
Yeah, absolutely.
You need to let people know what you're going through.
Yeah.
And you do need to start looking at getting to the next step.
Yeah.
All right. So that might mean just starting those conversations with people and being vulnerable and open about your emotions and actually verbalizing how you're feeling. That's a big tick. And then secondly, we need to get you to the doc. All right.
Yeah.
So the doctor is going to be the person to get you on that referral to that mental health care plan. So just for anyone listening who's not sure what that means, it means we go see a doc. They will sort of examine you to a degree in a verbal sense, and they'll give you a score rating. But generally, you know, you start hitting some of those sort of standard questions like, do you feel like this, and have you done this, and and are you having these thoughts? And it's almost like a tick box score thing. And okay, that's the clinical part of it. But from that, they can give you the referral to the psychologist or psychiatrist that you need at that time. Okay.
Yeah.
So once you're on your mental health care plan, at the moment you get 10 visits. All right. And they've now, since COVID, has extended it to another 10.
Okay, that's really good.
You can get up to 20 visits over the year. Subsidised visits.
Yeah.
So if you're that bloke on the couch, or if you're that lady on the couch, or whoever you are, whatever you identify with, and you're experiencing that type of low and you're having those types of feelings, or that you're in that mental state, you need to reach out.
And I think that's the biggest message for us too, is like, it's the process. It's people avoid it, and I think there's some fear behind it, but it's actually like, you know, going to see a psychologist, it's not as daunting as what, you know, everybody, you know, you can't see me on camera, but like, I'm a pretty normal sort of bloke. Like, I think there's this concept that, you know, that you're going to get this, I don't even know what people think, but sometimes I think I guess
like you've got the pleated lie down couch and you lay there with someone.
The Freudian concept
of glasses,
like the whole shrink thing.
I'm going to dive into your subconscious and look.
I think it's what TV and movies have.
Movies
I think
represented
they'll be like, going to a shrink or going to see a quack or whatever. Like, they've made it such a taboo thing, or that like you're a crazy person, you're a loopy, you know, mental case kind of thing. If you do that, that's where people are like, I don't want to be that. I don't want to be what the TV has painted that person out to be. And
that's really got me thinking as well about a point, because Richie talked a little bit about his own lived experience and how there was trauma that informed, sort of manifested with him, that potentially led to him experiencing mental health and suicidal ideation and things like that. On the flip side, I look at my own life and there was no trauma. There was no, it's just, it happens. Like I grew up fucking on the beach, 10 acres. I had horses, surf. It can be genetic. It can be an environmental thing that it just happens sometimes.
Yeah.
And so there's so much normality within it. And so I think some people are like you're saying, I'm crazy. And it's like, or, I'm so different. And it's like, you are to a certain extent, but you're also not, I'm booked out most Fridays, to be honest with you. So
That's amazing.
you're not, which is great for me, but it sort of, there's not a lot of, you're not the most unique individual in the world in that everybody's experiencing something, particularly at this time.
Look, and just to normalise that one step further is, even myself last year with the lived experience side, at times I felt like a bit of a hypocrite, because in a way I feel like behind or at face value of the page, I feel like we've got to sort of come across as these well put together guys who are giving you sound advice and what we're saying is
well put together.
It's not so much gospel, but what we're trying to do is let you know what generically will work for most people.
Yeah,
and
setting that example.
Setting that example and given from research or lived experience. But just go back last year, I was getting to the point that I had a breakdown, right? Yeah. And to me, it came in such a different, and still that is part of having a mental health difficulty. I literally had a mental health difficulty last year. Simo talked about that continuum. We all slide up and down good and poor mental health all day.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But then what we talk about is by chucking in then a mental health difficulty into that. So depression, stress, anxiety, PTSD.
Yeah. That's
where your continuum is sliding up and down to max or to low, even more excessively. Okay. Yeah. So these days and through maturity, I like to think I'm a bit better, well put together. So mentally, I didn't know what was going on. Like, because I'm doing this, as I'm pointing at my phone, I'm doing the mental health care page. I know what needs to be done. Rah rah rah. I'm just getting on with stuff, and there was news about my mother, news about my father, things happening at work, things happening around me. Yeah. There was just so much going on, but I'm just doing the typical bloke thing. I'll just keep going, push through. That will sort itself out. There's not much I can do with that. Till one morning, I woke up, I had breakfast, and I just went, oh. And I'm sort of, if the camera was on, I'm sort of pulling I'm starting to convulse. Like I'm starting to have my breakfast isn't going down. I'm like, fucking hell, what have I eaten last night? Or it was a milk off? And I just ran to the bathroom and just threw up. And my body just starts convulsing.
All came at you at once.
I'm just convulsing. And I'm like, oh, that's not right. And then I just threw up again. And my body went, so mentally I felt sound, but it was my body's way of saying, so it came out in a physical way, is what I'm saying. Instead of going, hey, you need to go lie down, it started shaking and I just could not control myself. I'm like literally sitting, calming, and I'm trying to use some of our techniques like, right, I'll sit and breathe and can't try and invoke that vagus nerve. So I'm sitting on the couch and I'm trying to work through my breathing, controlled breathing and meditation, and my hands are shaking as if I'm like on an adrenaline spin,
Yeah.
Fuck. Whoa. And then it took me a little while to click. So, right, what's going on, Rich? And, internally diagnose myself and, right, I've got a lot going on right now. Might go see the doc. I've got to get a certificate anyway because I'm not going to rock up to work today. I might unpack some of this with the doc. And he's just looked at me and goes, bro, you need to have some fucking time off.
Yeah.
And not that I'm condoning this, but and he goes, and I'm going to prescribe you some medication just to help you through the muscle reaction at the moment and what your body's doing.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not one to do that. I like to try and have a bit more of a holistic, so a bit more of a natural approach. Yeah. I'll let my body sort it out.
Yeah.
He's like, well, just take it, or as in take the script, and it's there if you need it at those worst times.
So that leads in perfectly to actually something I wanted to bring up. In terms of like these conditions you're talking about, like PTSD, right? What's both of your opinions on the now research going into like psychedelics like psilocybin and MDMA and stuff like that? What do you guys think about that?
Look, it's really, really interesting. And it's, look, I will say it's a field that's developing.
Yeah.
Look, I remember being in undergraduate and and so this is only a couple of years ago, the first trial of ketamine low dose ketamine as a
Like microdosing kind of thing.
yeah, for depression or long-standing depression was starting to get rolled out. And look, you know, if it starts to get an evidence base behind it, you'll start to hear me, you know, encourage it. Look, the biggest thing...
More research needs to be done, I guess.
needs to be done, but the biggest thing for me is particularly in this mental health space, is I think people really want a quick fix.
Yeah.
There is no such thing as a quick fix.
Yeah.
Even medications like antidepressants, SSRIs, all these sorts of things only work effectively with psychotherapy.
Yeah.
So go and see a psychologist. If you think that you can go to a doctor and take an antidepressant and walk away and feel great, that's not going to happen. And you know, you might feel a little bit better, but the effectiveness is going to be minuscule compared to doing psychotherapy with your medication or psychotherapy by itself.
And I guess the problem with them, sorry to cut you off, I guess the problem with MDMA and stuff like that is like if they go, oh, all right, now the MDMA is making me feel really good today, I don't need to go to this, right? Then they start developing a habit of drugs.
Yeah.
So it's like we're walking that fine line, hey?
Yeah.
It's such a look. It's an uncontrolled thing, you know. Like, you know, going and taking magic mushrooms at a non-clinically advised dose. You know, Like, look, I'm sure that there's people that have had effective, experiences of it. It's not something that I would ever recommend anybody do, but you know, look, I think it's an exciting research stream. Look, anything that I can effectively try and assist somebody is something that I'm going to be interested in and look forward to hearing about it. But at present, I'd be very, very hesitant to sort of endorse anything.
Of course. But I think it's more just if they're looking at something like, you know, say with like the DMT stuff and mushrooms and that as well, and where it is something where that particularly is a more natural thing. So if there's a way that they are able to find something like that has way in microdose can have way less side effects than what some of the pharmaceutical stuff has for people. Because, you know, one of the biggest things, and, you know, everyone has their own thoughts about antidepressants and whatever else, but my personal experience with people with them is the struggles with that one didn't really work. Let's get you off this one and on this one. That one didn't really work. And
ramp it up.
Let's go up, let's go down, all of those things. And that some of that comes down to, you know, could be misdiagnosis, and there's all of that kind of, you know, the concerns of it as well. But there's just so much else that person's then having to deal with on top of what they wanted it for in the first place.
Exactly.
So if some of these things that in a low dose aren't going to give them the weight loss, the hormonal things, the killing your sex drive, the whatever else it may be, I think that there's something there. It's something worth continuing to research into. For sure.
Most definitely. But and look, my biggest message I'm going to hammer home with all of this is. And look, this comes from lived experience as well. Like I still take medication, you know, and I think I will for the rest of my life. It's not something that I've ever been able to come off effectively and control my compulsions. But the consistent through sort of the change of medication until I got the right balance was psychotherapy. And so it was always something that I kept moving and it kept me stable. And, you know, even if somebody does decide, although I highly don't recommend it, but, you know, even if somebody was going to do a DMT experience, it's not going to solve the entire problem. You might...
It's not a master key. Yeah.
Look, I'd love there to be the magic, you know, Charlie the Chocolate Factory pill that's, you know, gobstopper for the rest of your life. It'd be fucking awesome. But... you know, and I think that's something it shows to me that there's stress in people that they just want the problem solved. Well, my best advice is to let's go and confront those problems with a healthcare professional and fucking trust me, things will get better.
And drive to the bottom of them and see where they're stemming from. I think just there's just a little catchphrase is what I want to throw in is the things that we're talking about is that masking effect to a degree. It's the Band-Aid effect. Do you know what I mean? So we're sort of we're just covering the wound and just like not looking at it. So we're stopping the sting. But once that Band-Aid comes off, that wound's still there. It's still raw. It's still going to hurt, you know. So I think, you know, until we address the wound properly, just chucking a Band-Aid on it's going to be good short term. So whether it is, you know, taking these form of drugs that you're talking about. And look, for me anyway, like one of our key messages, and I would like to promote just here, is that, you know, I think like anything that you're going to do in that regard has to be done carefully and in moderation, and have your research done, and know what you're entering in, because obviously the side effects of any sort of drug can be the come down, which can obviously affect negatively on your mental health anyway.
Yeah, exactly right.
So if you're already in a low sort of mental state, and then you take something thinking it's going to make you better, and it does peak you, well, it might send you a bit lower than what you were by taking it in the first place. Do you know what I mean? So it can actually probably increase the level of the negativity effect of it.
Yeah, we're definitely talking about it more so in the sense like where they've been doing the, you know, veteran, where they they get all the veterans together and they do it as like almost like a guided meditation where they'll also, and they'll do it over a few weeks where they keep coming back. So those are the kind of programs that I have more interest in. I'm not by any way advocating like, hey, if you've got mental health, let's get on the bus.
I think you're seeing these changes within psychology as well. So like, you know, traditionally it was, you know, like Freudian theory, subconscious, let's lie on the couch and talk about the size of your dick and shit like that. Whatever Freud did, he snorted a lot of coke, by the way. But then you move into this CBT, and then there's this third wave now of ACT and meditation. And look, psychology is probably exciting because it is developing in these types of things and looking outside the box. We're not sitting in this westernized, we're looking back to the Eastern movements and going, shit, is there other stuff that we can start doing to improve mental health? And look, it's not my niche, but I think it's pretty exciting to be a part of, and you know, look, keep a track on it. Don't drop a DNT, but you know, have a look. Well,
especially the ketamine one is interesting because I've been around some people on K, and they're definitely not having a time that I resemble working through anything. Actually,
I think sometimes that's the main concern, is that people, and look, it's hard. This is what always cracks me up about research, is that, you know, the headline that gets released is ketamine assists with depression, and you're like, not really, like, you know, like you're saying, micro dosing, and it's like, guys, you know, maybe have a little bit of a deeper read of the topic. Look, there's so much stuff out there, and this kind of leads me to the other side of things, is that there's psychology is not, it's not stuck in this place anymore. It's you know, if you go and see a psychologist and you don't get on with the person, or you don't have the therapeutic relationship with them, go see another one, because there's plenty out there. It might take you a little bit of time to get in, but you'll find that person that sits in your style. You know, generally there's so much talk, you know, like I think blokes are hesitant to go because they're so worried that you're going to have to sit there and pour out your feelings. And it's like, if that's not what you want to do, well, I'm not going to force you to do it, but I'm going to give you some practical fucking tools that you can go home with. Cool, you know.
I'll just jump in there just quickly. We did a live show back in March with a bloke called Nathan Bolton. So him and his brother Nathan, Dan, it's posted to our page. It was supposed to be live, but we pre-recorded, so it's up in a 4-part video.
Yeah, cool.
But anyway, Nath is a returned war veteran from Afghanistan. He does a lot of community talking now, and he sits on all these different boards, you know, within South Australian community, you know, to do with mental health and suicide and whatnot. Amazing speaker. But it's a very similar story. Like, this has been one of Simo's massive messages to anyone looking at going to get sort of, you know, psychological help or whatever. And he talks about don't settle for the first bloke. And it was really refreshing to hear Nathan. We said, and one of my questions to him was, right, you've identified there was a problem with you. At what point did you go from that to walking through those doors of the psychologist and going, I need to be here?
Yeah.
And he gave this really cool story about that. But his message there was he was so anti-psychology. He was like, how the fuck are these people going to fix me? I've seen everything. I've seen my mates blown up next to me. You know, he
thought he was too far gone.
He was too far gone in his mind. And I think he says it got to about his 5th psychologist, and, you know, he said he hated the profession, you know, and he sort of went in with that negative attitude. And by the 5th one, he sits down there and sort of said, you know, so what are you going to do for me? And the psychologist turns around and goes, Nathan, this is not about me. This is about you. What do you want from me? And he was like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm here. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was a real changing moment for him. And I think anyone going in to see a psychologist for the first time needs to understand that you're there, or these people are there for you. What are you wanting to get out of them?
Yeah.
You're obviously there for a reason. You've driven yourself there. You've made the appointment. You've got there. You're now sitting in the front of the chair, or whatever it may be, whatever dynamic you're sitting in. What the fuck do you want to say?
I think a good analogy for that would be like, they're not there to fix you. They're there to help you fix you.
Yourself.
100%.
And any
Perfect.
good psychologist is there to let you fix yourself. It's called a therapeutic relationship. I'm not there to tell you how to do things. I'm there to guide you on that journey. And look, any good psychologist doesn't want to see you if they don't have to.
Exactly right.
They want you to get better, deal with your own problems on your own time, and please, but that's an effective psychologist. But just keep going. You'll find somebody that niches. Is like, I went through 3 or 4 when I was younger, and I found this bloke that's very similar story to mine, ex-construction worker, went back to uni, and man, it just clicked. And that was it.
Yeah.
It was like, you just know, and you're like, fuck, you don't marry the first girl you sleep with, do you? But you know what you mean. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You do. You got to find the right person, and I think that's a big message that we always push home. Is so some people go in and then that's it. Psychology shit, and I don't want to ever do with it. Just keep going back. You'll find a good one.
Another thing I just really want to make clear here is, I think again going back to that shame and that sort of stigma around negative response about going to a psychologist. And I think that comes because you're in a negative space when you go there in your head, and that's kind of the reason why you're there. But as you start working through those things in your appointments, and you are getting, well, I'm putting inverted commas here, you are getting better, or you're getting back to being a better version of yourself, is how I like to explain it. If you're going up to an appointment and you're having a fucking really good week, please don't cancel that appointment. Go still see your psych and tell him why you're having a good week. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because psychology isn't about talking
Just
negative
about,
and like, this and that. It is about growth and being positive and reconnecting with yourself, and like I just said, trying to become the better version of yourself. So if you can tell your psych, man, fucking I had a killer week this week. All right, let's explore that. Why did you have a good week this week? Or why did you have a good day this week? And why was it one good day out of 7 rather than 7 shit days? Yeah. And then build on that one day until that one day becomes 2, 3, 4, and the multiplier effect. So,
because if you can identify your strengths, then you can keep working on them.
We've got a very, I think clinical psychology is very much, I think people have got this viewpoint of, it's diagnosis of, disorders and PTSD and all those sorts of things. But then there's positive psychology as well that's trying to drive you. You see the best sports professionals all, you have employ psychologists to get them to perform at their best.
Yeah, well, that's what my uncle does. He's a sports psychologist. And he works with Olympians and stuff like that.
And so hang on, like why can't a normal everyday person be encouraged to do that as well? You know? Fucking.
Because that's part of it, right? Is that so exactly what you were saying, where they have a good week and they cancel their appointment because they think that they're only there to bounce them back off the bottom instead of like, no, I'm here to again keep that ripple going all the time, so that you're not then coming back at I don't want to see you back in my office at the bottom. I want you to be constantly coming in in the middle or up or slightly down instead of where we were when we first started.
Yeah. And then once I see that consistency, I'm going to be like, look, cruising. Come back and see me when you want to see me.
Do you think you need to be here?
That's so cool.
I remember just my last experience from last year, it only took, not that it's like, it only took, I'm not trying to downplay it, but I was only there for 4 sessions, but that 4 sessions was enough just to help me process that stuff to the point on that 4th session. It was actually a referral that Simo gave to me. He was one of his mentors back in the day, and he was a fucking great bloke, man. Really, really, I was fortunate to click with him straight away, so I didn't have to worry about going, I might find the right person, explore someone else. But by that 4th session, we were getting towards the end, and he goes, Rich, I know I've only met you over 4 sessions, but you seem like heaps better to when, what are you thinking? Do you think you need to be here next week, or do you want to extend it out for? And I just said, you know what? I've got 10 sessions. I've used 4. Let's just park up the next 6 sessions, and if I need you, bro, I'll call you. He goes, done. I'm here. Killer. And it was just enough just to get me back.
Yeah, fuck yeah, dude.
And I'll keep going back to that little saying where being the best, what I feel is the best version of myself. Because I think as blokes, we know internally, when you're not running right. Yeah,
fucking
absolutely.
And I think if it's every now and then, that's cool. You can deal with that because we just talked about those tools that we implement to ourselves to get us back, and we get back on that ripple effect. But if we're waking up day after day and we're not feeling right, and then we're not feeling right a little bit more, and then, you know, we can feel that sliding scale, well, yeah, that's when we need to sort of internalise a little bit and go, shit, do I need to reach out here? Do I need to,
Yep.
you know, what's going on with me? I'm not feeling myself, you know?
Yep.
I'm going to segue a little bit in here too, because I think it's a really good thing that we haven't touched on. And
That's cool. Yeah. Segue now, and then we'll jump into some questions and wrap it up after that.
Yeah,
We've got a set of questions we ask our guests every time. So we'll finish on a bit of a fun note.
Richie. Fall asleep.
So I've got the mic testing. Has this thing been on? So I think we're at a really interesting point with mental health in the community right now. You know, especially with guys like Simo, and I think we've got a new face of people driving our cause, so to speak.
Yep.
And I say our cause, not like us four here, but as a community.
Yep.
Yeah.
Every person who's passionate or getting around mental health, I think we can see a bit of an influx. And I think the reason why that change is there or starting to be there is, I think when I say that 30 to 40, you know, 30 to 40 age bracket, I'm going to call it, I think we're that breaking point of reducing the stigma of our predecessors.
Yeah.
You know, those 80, 70, 60-year-old blokes who taught me as an apprentice back on the tools, who were those, just fucking get on with it, mate.
Man.
What are you worried about? Rah, rah, rah. They're moving on, we'll say. And I think guys like us are starting to see the value in talking and being vulnerable and opening up about our feelings, because we don't have to just get on with it all the fucking time. And I think that is now starting a bit of a trend, whether it's social media or what. But I tend to think and see that our younger youth, our generation, are a lot more open to their feelings and are able to talk out a bit, as long as we're giving them the right tools, There's always going to be that demographic, unfortunately. But I think with the access to technology that we have, there is so much more knowledge, research got by legends like this, and getting that information out into the community. I feel like I'm really starting to see a bit of a push that guys our age and hopefully older who don't want to fit the I'm going to bottle up the feelings mold. But I really honestly believe that there is starting to be that ripple effect getting pushed down to our peers and those younger generations, those groups, especially through social media, that they go, you know what, I can talk about my feelings, or fuck that guy bullying me, I need to stand up to him, or do need to tell the teacher this is affecting me in a negative way, or whatever it might be. So I think we're at I use this word a lot, but I think we're at a beautiful point. And we're sort of at the fulcrum point where we're tipping over, where we're not on top of mental health, but we're actually starting to see, you know, the
change
start
being
of
made.
the change being made.
A very good example of that is, because I've got a lot of, I'm a paper bitch myself. I've always worked in offices, but all of my mates are all tradies, you know, concreters, all of those kind of people. And the amount of them that, you know, some of them I've been friends with for close to 20 years now, and the amount of them that are now starting to find themselves in a job where their senior or their manager or whatever is someone who understands what it is to be a bloke and the things that everyone struggles with or whatever, and that has made such a monumental difference to their happiness at work, because there's been this culture, and as you said, you focus on the construction stuff, so you probably know exactly what it's like, where, you know, you chuck a sickie or you're hurting the company or whatever. There's no such thing as a mental health day. There's no, even a big thing has been that I'm starting to see a shift in is this whole like, you know, blokes being able to say, hey, my kid needs me today. I don't want the missus to have to, because this is the part of this whole thing. Families have both people working, right? So then when you've got the missus who luckily has a job, who is a bit more understanding because her boss is a woman who has kids, so she lets her take her annual leave off or whatever. And then the guy goes, well, there's no chance of me getting a fucking day off. My boss will kill me. So but then that creates that pressure, that thing. And then the wife's going, well, I've got no annual leave left now. Like, and you're just working fucking 6 days a week. Like, just creates this whole thing. Pressure builds up. Then they've got no outlets, no way to talk about it. So we're starting to see that move where, you know, a bloke can turn around to his boss and go, mate, I got to have the kids today because my missus already had 2 days off. They're still sick. They can't go to school. And the boss goes, mate, no worries, all good. the pressure comes off. They go home. They get an extra day with their kids, which is always, usually an uplifting thing when you know that you don't have to be there. If you've got a bit of sick leave banked up, you're still being paid now to sit at home and play Xbox with your son or whatever. Yeah. And it's just such a different thing. And I think that's making those kind of progressions where you're saying some of these fucking boomers are starting to age out of these jobs, and we're the culprits for that kind of like, no, you work yourself. And I mean, if you look at the relationships of those people and the way that their life, you can see all the fucking signs that they weren't dealing with their own stuff well, but it's just bottle up, comes out in bad ways, alcoholism, whatever it may be. And then they're the ones that are in charge of a fucking job site that are expecting everyone to carry that same torch that they do, which is a ridiculously high expectation to have for themselves, let alone all the people that are under them. So it's just, you are starting to see that people like us that have this understanding of what everyone else, because that's a lot of what it is as well. We're all conduits for each other, right? Yeah. So, when I am hanging out, Saturday we're having a few people over here because we were supposed to have a music festival on Saturday. They got fucking cancelled because of Rona. So we've decided to have a gathering here with all of the people that were going to go to the festival so we can catch up. So, we'll sit around and you're just like, everyone will talk about whatever's going on, whatever they're going through, because we've just now established that kind of like, it's an open forum all the time, have a chat about whatever's getting you down. Awesome. So because we're that lightning rod for that stuff, the more of those that you can place in a work site, in a footy club, in a gym, whatever it is, where people go, oh, holy shit, this is that person that can help me, and then the people around him become good, the people around him, that's all we need to do, man, is just place them everywhere.
I just want to really touch on something that you said about the workplace, and I think I can sort of see that change, and we'll call it evolution now. Zach Hauser, who we had on our July live again, he made a really good point. And he said, look, sick days are built into your salary or into your award or whatever you might be under, right? Sick days don't necessarily have to be there because you've got the flu or whatever. Sick days can mean I'm just not feeling it today, or mentally I cannot fucking deal with going to work today. Take that day. That's the time. That's when a sick day can be used now as well, all right? And it's really nice to hear him say, I did it last year. I just said to my boss, I'm like, mate, mentally I'm fucking struggling right now. I need to take the foot off the accelerator and pump the brake a bit here, and I just need to chill, all right? I need a couple of days off. Mate, thanks for being so open and honest. Take it. So I think there's a change in that culture is what I'm alluding to.
Yeah.
And I want people to know that it's okay. Take a sickie. But take a sickie for your mental health, just as you would if you need to toe yourself up in bed and get over the flu or the cold.
Yep.
So it's the same thing. We can draw parallels here.
If I ring, and sometimes I think as well, if you ring your boss and your missus is in hospital, I need to look after my kid, and he's turning around telling you need to get into work because you're struggling. Well, get a new fucking boss.
Absolutely. You lose respect for that person.
Or chuck a sickie anyway. Just go,
fuck
no
you.
worries, bang. And then ring the other line and go, I'm not coming in today, I'm sick. So use those sickies.
Man, for sure.
Because it's important. I think, look, I don't know the structure anymore really, but I think off the top of my head, I think you get about 10 built into your package a year, and if you don't take them, they sit there and they build up with some companies over time. So, look, if you're at that struggling point, or it just can be pressure, stress, heat, whatever's happening in your workplace. When I say heat, that compounding effect of things getting on top of you. Take a day off, disconnect.
But part of the problem, though, and this is where I think this progression is important, is that people would be made to feel
weak.
Like not even weak. Like you've let the company down.
Yeah.
For taking a sick day, right? So people then become, even though they get to the point where I really need a day off today, they then don't do it because they think that the flow-on effect of not taking it is worse than taking it.
Yeah.
And that's what needs to. That's the thing that I want to change, and I think
that's
needs to change.
You've just fired something inside of me that pisses me off that people out there think like that. And let's look at it this way: if you've got a worker who's working in a negative mindset, how's that efficient or streamlining your company? Right? You need your workers to be on their game, right? So to do that, if your worker needs a day off so he can mentally reset, so he can be on top of his game and work for you efficiently, now we've got success. So why would you negatively put down a bloke for wanting to have a fucking mental health day? Without sounding politically incorrect, but I'd just love to punch someone like that in the face and go, mate, wake up.
You are seeing those changes though. Look, groups is now like, and workplaces are starting to understand. There's research that's coming out that's showing that, you know, mental health is related to productivity and all those sorts of things. You know, you're seeing people, you know, investing in wellness programs, employees assistance programs, all these different things. And so I think the workplace is starting to shift, which is super exciting. And it's happening in those industries that I never, you know, in my lifetime, I never thought would happen. You know, construction, there's mates in construction, you know, all these types of support programs for suicide. And like when I was 16 and starting out in the tools, like, you know, it didn't exist. So it's happening. And look, the other thing is that I just thought, the last thing I want to say is I think people hesitate making that contact to tell their boss that they're struggling.
Of course,
And I think that, you know, every time I've had that conversation with my boss, it's actually gone really well.
I
think sometimes you get that thing that you try and hold it in and you don't want to say anything. It's that sort of stigma, but you have that conversation and a lot of the time your boss knows that it's there, but they're waiting for you to say something. And they're far more understanding than what you would expect. You know, you're not asking for them to murder on your behalf. You're asking for a fucking day off.
Exactly right.
And I think, again, and going back to it, is part of that therapeutic approach by acknowledging and verbalizing it there in front of your boss. You've started, remember we were just talking about that therapeutic.
Exactly right, getting it out.
We're not going to see the psych just yet, but we're just getting it out. And that's already starting to fucking let people know that, fuck, man, I'm struggling. That's part of that healing process already for the mind.
Well,
so
sometimes they'll, like, if the boss will pick up and go, oh, we've got to squeeze a couple more in there.
Squeeze it in.
But, you know, some days I know, you know, I think you've had it done more for a thing, but, like, you know, sometimes the boss will be like, I'll tell you what, fucking go do something really piss easy for today and just fucking go out there on your own, not be doing the really heavy lifting stuff that you're normally doing, and just have an easy day. So maybe you don't need a sick day.
No.
And having that conversation with your boss and be like, mate, I've had the worst sleep, whatever it is, because I've just been struggling with everything. And he goes, mate, or go get in the truck and go and do this or whatever. And then all of a sudden you're in that truck and you're not doing your normal job and whatever, and you feel 10 times better because you just had that conversation. It was acknowledged. It was acknowledged even more by the boss going, I'll tell you what, fucking go do this and I'll fix that up or whatever. And you're like, holy shit, I was heard, I was understood, and I was, you know, something was done about it. That can make all the difference.
100%, bro. And the flip side of what we're doing is it does this. It creates conversation between you and your boss, but then it opens up. It almost becomes an invitation, because if you're opening up to your boss, the boss might just go, man, I've been where you're at. And then it normalizes it again. So then it reinforces to you, okay, it's okay to feel like this. You know, so it's about that communication and connecting with each other again and talking about these things, because, you know, if you just put the head down and kept going and then Jimmy just cuts his fucking hand off because his mind's not on the job, the boss is like, you fucking dickhead. Like, I'm sure he won't say you fucking dickhead. There'll be some element of concern. But, you know, acknowledging that and then opening up and then having that, again, that communication, that conversation like us boys are having right now, you start sharing, don't we? And then and it normalises again. And, you know, this is the whole fucking message for any mental health awareness, you know, space out there, is this is what we need to do. We just need to normalise it for us blokes, so that those guys out there who go, I'm not fucking talking about how I'm feeling. Bro, it's okay. Just do it, man. If you want to. If you want to. If you don't, or you don't feel comfortable with it, there's nothing wrong with that either. But when you've given the opportunity, if it feels like something that you want to do at that time, embrace it, go for it, and let it out. You know,
and you know, even if it doesn't feel natural, maybe give it a try. What have you got to lose? What have you got to lose? Right? You know. All right, well, I think that's a perfect. I reckon that's a perfect way to wrap it up into some questions.
Let's do these questions.
Every guest we have on, we have a set of questions that we ask.
I'll tell you in a bit.
When we hit the mic stop, you can fill us in on wherever your mind wandered to.
We've known you guys for about 2 hours, and I'm getting fucking nervous now about questions.
They're nice and easy.
They're nice and easy. We'll fire off the first one. What's your favourite song?
Of all time.
Of all time.
Shit.
Now, we often say, look, you don't have to give us one. You can give us a top three.
And then try and, out of that top
come
three,
on,
give
squeeze
us
a
one that
one.
really
You know,
just...
Bro Him by Pennywise.
We haven't had any Pennywise, actually.
Honestly, it's just, I don't know, it hits me. I've got a fair few, actually.
Yeah.
But
have you got a couple of others that come to mind?
Yeah. Now it's just gone away by the Offsprings, another massive
Yeah.
one.
So you just love
I
your punk, yeah.
Yeah.
I love my punk, but there's something, they've all got a similar theme that just they're about distress and pain, and
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know, there's something that just hits me.
What about you, Richie?
Oh, bro, that's such a hard question because I do love my music. I've had a bit of a music background growing up. So
Yeah.
the first thing that came to mind when you boys said that was Rage Against the Machine, Killing in the Name of. I don't know why. This is my
Killer
old
song.
school, and I saw that Rage play live.
Really?
So
When was that?
That was killer. That was at bloody Big Day Out.
Oh,
at,
killer. Yeah.
fucking back in 52.
So one
Back when I was young.
of my parents' favorite early memories of me is actually me at about 3 years old running around going, "Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me." They always tell people about
Maybe
that.
that's
so.
probably why I was
Yeah.
a bit of a rebel without a cause. But
Yeah.
so that's one, and I don't know why, but I'm just drawn, and I've been listening to it lately. Is I don't even know who sings it, but it's been covered that many times. Is "Lean on Me."
Yeah.
Lean on me.
Yeah.
Please don't say
Especially not into this.
For the full version of him covering that song, go to the Facebook
I
page.
can't believe I did that.
that goes
Then
everywhere,
I
bro.
like, I love a bit of Hilltop Hoods. Keep it local. Some of the Hilltop Hoods tracks. One
Old
of my-
Hilltop for me is a big go-to.
Me too, yeah, 100%. But then one of my fondest memories is my daughter, like my oldest daughter, she's 7, and at about 6 months old, I'd be changing her nappy, and she used to love Cosby Sweater.
Oh, really?
And for me to keep her still, like she'd just like chill out, and she'd get this big smile on her
That's
face when
killer.
I play Hilltop Hoods, Cosby Sweater. So it's
killer.
a real favourite song of
Yeah.
mine. But and again, another
Didn't
curveball
want
is.
every song that you've ever
No,
listened
no,
to.
but
This one's a good question.
Yeah, exactly.
Rudimental, Feel the Love is, I don't know why, that
Oh,
just
yeah,
gets
that's
me at the
classic,
moment
yeah.
for some reason. And it's an old school one, but
Yeah, man.
There's some good tracks out there. I mean, look,
Yeah.
mine are all old school, like Fleetwood Mac and Neil Young.
yeah,
Oh, yeah, Led Zeppelin.
Red
I love
Hot
Led
Chili
Zeppelin too.
Peppers. Yeah, I'm
Ocean.
not so sure about current music. but
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
No,
Fear
I swear.
Factory, bit of Fear
Look,
Factory.
there's a lot of good music out now. It's just a matter of finding it.
yeah,
See,
it's digging
we're
around.
big, both massive metalheads, so like we're with stuff that's not getting played on the radio for
See,
sure
like-
as well. So you got to sift through that.
Yeah, Pantera, Down. I love
Yeah.
all those types of things. I think it's all
Fear Factory.
mood related for me.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
I've got playlists for when I'm writing articles, and then I got playlists for gym. But yeah,
I love that
fuck yeah,
classic
dude.
cliche of like, how can you listen to that angry music? I'm like, that's what gets me when I'm driving
fall
down the
asleep to it
road.
very low.
Yeah, when I'm driving down the road and like someone's like doing the most demonic scream of all time. That's soothing for me. I'm punching the steering wheel instead of the bloke in the car next to me that just cut me off, right?
I think
That's,
I still there's a video I think on our Instagram page just of me probably singing to a song because I still sometimes will in the car just.
It wasn't Lean on Me by any chance. Clearly, was it this part?
No, but I still think there's nothing better than just singing at the top of your lungs.
I agree, man.
Absolutely,
I
absolutely.
get laughed at in the car because I sing like
Yeah,
singing
bro.
it, yeah.
And I'm trying to hit them notes that I'm never going to hit. I'm fucking trying.
Richie's definitely not.
I've never
All
heard
right.
a note.
Question number two. Question number two.
Question number 2 is, who is your favourite comedian or comedic actor?
Well, apart from you, of course, Justin.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
You go, because I'll need a bit of time to think.
Robin Williams, man.
Yeah,
yeah. Fuck yeah.
That's a fucking huge
that
call.
is- yeah,
How
that
have
is
we
big
not
call.
had that one before?
Do you know what? I watched Mrs. Doubtfire's on the other day. And
Yes.
I was
Yeah.
so
So good.
Classic
There's
movie.
nothing. I don't think anyone will get to that
I
level.
love
And Jim
Robin
Jeffries is another cracker.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I would almost go down the Robin Williams path, but I don't know why. But I just had him. Adam Sandler's in my head for some reason.
Yep.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
fucking oath, dude. You
He
can't.
played.
I was
He's a
watching
legend.
some of his old SNL stuff came up on Facebook the other day, and I was watching some of that, and fuck, he was great on that. And like, everyone so quickly gets drawn to Billy Madison, Happy Gilmore, whatever,
Yeah,
because they were
yeah.
so iconic. But that's the reason he got all of those movie roles is because of his time on SNL, and it was fucking great the work that he
Yeah,
did.
him and
back
Chris
there.
Farley, Chris Farley's another one.
Yeah.
The Belushi as well. You sort of sit there and you're like, fuck, same thing. Look, it's different now. I think comedy. I'm not going to tell you what it's like, but
No, of
yeah, I
course,
think
no,
Well,
it
it's like
is.
the landscape's changed too.
Yeah.
Can you just do like a Mrs. Doubtfire, like hello dear?
no,
Like,
because I'm not going to embarrass myself like
I just wanted something to a bit of redemption, but damn it.
Chris Farley as well for me is right up there.
Yeah, he's
really cool.
There's a movie called Beverly Hills Ninja that he does. That's one of my just all-time favorites. So
Tommy Boy.
he's right up there. Yeah, Tommy Boy. Him and David Spade, man, just had such a good dynamic.
What about Matt from Full Tilt Fight and Fitness? He's Matty.
Yeah,
He does a bit of comedy as
yeah,
well.
he was
doesn't
on. So we both were on Cranker last night as well.
There you go.
So
Yeah.
he's great. He's got so much energy, that man, up there on stage.
I'm going to put him down as one of, even though I haven't heard yours or his acts, I'm going to put you guys down as my new favourite comedians.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. Well, now you've got to go and check out my stuff.
yeah.
You've got to come and have a look. What's question
All
number
right,
3?
question number 3. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
That's what it is.
To end suicide.
Oh,
Jeez, we haven't had that one either.
yeah, wow. That's
mine
really
would
noble.
definitely be invisible.
Yeah, that's a common one actually. Yeah, a lot of
We
people.
get that one all the time for different reasons. Sometimes we get it.
intertwined too.
Yeah. No, I just love to be invisible, so I could have quiet time.
The amazing thing. So we had a guest on a couple of months ago now, and he's a comedian. Used to play college basketball. Used to play for the NBL.
Wow.
And massive. He's like fucking 6'10", the most like, out there kind of bloke. And when we asked him that question, and the whole episode we just talked about his life and college, and we didn't really get to mental health at all. And then when we asked him that question, he's like, I want to be invisible because sometimes I just want to fucking be able to disappear.
Yeah,
because I
really
had massive
hit it,
social
yeah.
anxiety. We ended up having this 20-minute conversation at the end, in the middle of the questions, about his battle with social anxiety that I would have never fucking guessed in the world. And I guess to bring everything full circle, you just never know. Even me, who's someone who professes to have a bit of an understanding about this stuff, would have never guessed in a million years that he was someone that struggled with that. Yeah.
Introverted extroverts, you know.
Yeah.
And look,
Yeah.
I actually really, that's something that I always align with, I it's funny, I'm good at being around people, but I don't particularly enjoy it. It drains me and
Yeah.
it sucks my energy out. And
So
so
more like an ambivert, where it's like
Yeah.
depending on your ambience, I guess. Like that's how you react. Like
yeah, and I just like being by myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Richie
Oh, yeah.
gets used to it. I just
Yeah.
won't talk to him for a
I
month.
think we're all very similar. We all need our alone time every now and then. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I think we probably in that, and we've just touched on that name. I mean, Robin Williams was a big, he was so beautiful on stage,
man.
and
that was shocking.
how crazy he was. But then, the demons he must have been fighting, and a lot of us wouldn't have known because it was off camera, unless we'd read it in the media or whatever. But here's another bloke, Monops, this rapper, a mate of ours in our circle, will say, he wrote a song called "Living the Dream," and it was literally about the perception of people looking at him externally and looking at what he does and what he's got, and people go, "Wow, man, you're living the dream." But behind all that, he's actually crippled by these mental health issues.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important. We can't take anyone on preface. We can't just take them on first face value. We really need to get to know people.
Some people are
because
really good at hiding it.
That's right.
Really
And it's
good at
that
hiding.
pressure to be the person that you have outwardly all the time, especially for those kind of people, performers or whatever, where they're like, no, this is what we need from you. And it's like, maybe I don't feel like being that right now. And that's not okay.
That's probably been the greatest thing I've ever learned as I've gotten older is I just don't care.
Yeah.
if you I'm like, I'll need my own time. If you don't like that, well,
Yeah, sorry.
bad luck, mate.
Catch me in a month.
Yeah.
Next question is, and I'm sure that you've talked about it a bit already with some of the techniques, particularly for you, but what's your experience with meditation?
Mine's actually not as heavy as Richie's probably got a lot more learning in this. I really struggle with meditation.
Yeah.
I find the breathing side of things works for me, but if trying to get into a really deep meditative state, I just struggle. I think my best experience has been, you guys ever done a float tank?
No, but I want to so bad.
Elevation tank, and it forced me to get into that state because if I've got any sort of stimulation, I'm going over that way instead.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I'll
There's
let
more of that
Richie's-
stuff popping up now somewhere. Is there
Yeah,
somewhere
no,
that-
there's a lot of places
There's like one in
around.
Glenelg, I think.
Yeah, there's,
One
look,
there.
there'd be a lot.
Yeah,
there's
no.
there's a shout out to a group called Prana Healing. They've got one, I think they're located on Unley Road. That's where I've been
cool.
before.
Right.
Quite holistic. But look, it was a great experience. I mean, physically it was good for me, but mentally, it was really, really cool. It forced me to get into a state, and yeah, that's probably my best experience. I probably should go back to prana healing.
Yeah,
but
you know what? I reckon we should go.
Yeah, do it. But yeah, Richie's probably the guru more than me.
I wouldn't say I'm a guru, but I've come from a surfing background, so obviously holding breath and being in water and being underwater for a long time when you're not the best surfer at times, you generally
don't
have
understate yourself.
Spend time underwater, yeah.
So it's kind of through just, from back when the Hawaiians were doing crazy shit like holding rocks underwater and like trying to walk them as far as they can on one single breath. I'd muck around with stuff like that just for shits and giggles with mates when we're down the beach and playing around with it. But I guess in the last few years I've really developed it a lot more because I understand the benefits, but the healing aspects of it too. Without turning this into a fucking whole new episode, but Simo touches on it in one of his videos and why breathing's so important and what it actually does to us. So it actually invokes the vagus nerve. Now, anyone who's around yoga or does, breath work or, can run you through a breathing exercise will tell you about what it does. So by invoking this vagus nerve, you're calming down your neurological thought patterns, but you're also calming down your cardiovascular system, and you're bringing everything into almost like a sedated state. It calms everything down, heart rate, you name it, thoughts. So hence why it's breathing and meditation goes so well together. Yeah. So for me, I use it maybe once a week at times, or when I need it, when things are getting a little bit hectic. So I'll do it in two forms. I'll either just sit here and breathe in a chair, like with open eyes, like us guys are doing right now.
Yep.
And that it can be like just a 10 breath sequence. And we have done it when we've gone to do talks. If we're doing a small group chat with people, I'll start the session by people going, look, guys, this is going to feel really weird, especially if you haven't done it before, but let's start this with 10 deep breaths. And we do it all together, and it just takes the edge off. You can see them all just go, cool.
Get some of that anxiety
So there's that side of it. Then on some nights I'll do it in a meditation state. So I'll lie flat on the floor, head under my pillow, and really zone out and try and... so I had a mate who would help me, and he'd run me through a meditation technique. So if you want to get into it, I suggest probably going to see someone who understands it and can take you through some basic 101s, and that's where I'm at. I'm just at a real basic 101.
Are you talking about transcendental?
To a degree. So I don't even know what that means, bro. So
No, like that.
to a degree, what the fuck does that mean?
That's just like what it's called. It's called
Okay.
transcendental meditation. Meditation, sorry.
Meditation. Yeah, let's run with that. So he sort of talks about it in a way of focusing almost like your eyes outside of your body and seeing a point outside of you, but then running that point back through your head, down the back of your spine into your chest, and then having that project out through your heart.
Yep.
So it's a real. He's comes from a. I know.
I wish
Simo's
we had
like.
the video working for that, man.
I know.
That
Sort of
would've
like,
been the
what
best.
the fuck are you talking about? But he sort of sees it because he's really inspired by Buddhism.
That's
he
dope.
sees it as that's his way of really zenning out, and he brings in a lot of that enlightenment side of it into his meditation. So I went to him and just said, look, I don't need to know that stuff. That's that stuff you do, and you do that really well. But I just want you to make me meditate in such a way. So anyway, he did that. So I coupled that then with stupidly picked the wrong time to do it last year, but I started doing that with cold water therapy as well.
Oh yeah.
So then a little bit sort of stemming off the Wim Hof stuff, but not as dramatic, because some of that stuff. But anyway, so
I did try that Wim Hof stuff I tried that. I can't have a cold fucking shower in the morning, man. I just can't do it. Can't do it. Like.
There's a lot of brain training in there too, but the sensory response is crazy. And I was talking to Steve, the mate who we were talking about, who's become a doctor, and he was going to do the page with us. He was talking about it, how it actually sends the body into a shock state, and then it does all this stuff inside you, and by releasing this and teeing into your T cells and all this type of stuff, how much of a positive benefit it is for your body. So there's obviously medical reasons why it's such a good thing. I'm not smart enough to understand that. So I suggest if you want to look into it, speak to the right people or do some research. But so I'll do it in that regard. And me and my brother actually went through a little bit of a Wim Hof stage while I was over in Melbourne. So we were talking about it, and I said, all right, well, let's do a challenge. Let's do it for the next 3 months, and we'll get to the point to see who can fucking hold their breath the longest.
Yeah.
So you do it over three phases. I was doing one and sitting on the couch. There was no cold water immersion or anything. It was literally on the couch. And on my third, so we'd do it in 3 successions. Like, so you do it once, back off, have a little break, go again, back off, and then do it a third time. And on the third time, we'd record our times. So I got up to 4 minutes, holding my breath. So, and that was the most I've ever held my breath.
What were you on the first? Oh, you didn't time the first, did you?
No, I'd time the first. So generally, because I had a bit of lung capacity, and when I say lung capacity, my body was used to using the oxygen in an efficient way in my body. I might be able to hold for a minute and a half, minute 45, which for some people like, whatever, but other people it's like, fuck man, I can't hold my breath for 15 seconds. Simo puts his hand up. Yeah. So to push myself from, minute 30, minute 45 out to 4 minutes. With time, it didn't just happen the first time. So to the point, my missus was in the kitchen one night and I started doing it and I was laying on the couch. And then I was like, went through my breath exercise sequences, and then I'd have the stopwatch in my hand, and then as I got to the end of it, bang, hit the stopwatch, went out. When I say went out, closed my eyes and just went into my meditation state, which I do while I'm sitting there and trying to be efficient with that oxygen in my body. And because I was quiet and laying there for so long, when I came to, I was like, and she's like, holy shit. She goes, what the fuck are you doing then? She goes, well, I thought you were asleep. And I'm like, no, I was holding my breath. So, if she was pregnant like she is now, she probably would have had the baby in the kitchen. So,
that's crazy, man.
That's
definitely something I'll have to...
definitely something worth exploring, and it's really good for your mental state and really encouraged by us because it can help to calm, especially anxiety. If some of my friends are experiencing anxiety or anxious episodes, so try and use some shock technique or some splashing water on the face, or getting a physical aspect to bring you back to the present, so you're not going down that thought process of that
that's a really
compounding
cool,
thought. And then coupling that with a bit of breathing. And trying to invoke that vagus nerve. Yeah.
Very good. Should we hit him with the last question?
Yes, the all-important, the one that we always get excited for. The final question we have for every guest is, would you rather fight a horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses?
It's really funny for me, this question, because I actually broke my back, ankle and pelvis riding a horse.
Oh, trauma,
so
bro.
I'm going to go for the horse-sized duck. Because if I see any type of horse, I get sweaty hands and start shooting myself. So.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
That's the same with me, man. I always go, I'll just take the one horse-sized duck.
I'll fuck that shit up.
I'm going to go the opposite. I'm going to go 100 duck-sized horses.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. That's why I'll fucking kick those little bastards out of the way. I don't give a shit.
They're dense as shit, man. They're little horses.
Yeah, but I know they're coming from it, but I've done a bit of kickboxing and stuff, so I'm thinking a couple of good push kicks, side kick roundhouses.
It'd be fun, like a training exercise. Just like horses, just like...
Especially if they're in like one of those things that you put tennis balls in, they poof,
You just spin them out,
just fucking use it like sparring practice and
get the baseball bat out.
Nice, dude. There we go.
That'd be sick.
That's great. I love that we had one of each. Yours is awesome. So. All right, before we finish it up, what happened with the accident, the horse?
Yeah, I was fucking. It's
the horse bashed me.
It's really funny actually. So I was living on the Gold Coast, and
so Simo's a pretty big guy, so the horse probably went, get the fuck off.
I went to I was living on the Gold Coast, and we went out for a couple of mates to a mate's farm, and he had horses. I rode horses growing up from a young age.
Yeah.
My family trained race horses, but we'd had a couple of beers, and he jumped on a nag and went around, and then I got on the back of it, and then we didn't know at the time, but it was actually in foal, and it reared up and literally fell back on top of me. And so, I was very, very lucky to be able to walk.
Wow.
And then when it rolled off, it broke my ankle as well because it stayed in the stirrup. So, got airlifted from a fucking paddock into a hospital. And, it's a really good memory.
Fucking hell.
So I haven't sat in a horse ever since.
So you're fucking that duck up. You're not going
no intention of getting anywhere near him. My family still trains trotters dogs and shit, and I don't want to.
But you're just rocking up to the family home like, fuck you, dogs.
I got sweaty hands talking. Wow.
All right. Well, sorry for fucking making you
There's
relive
your
your bloody
fucking
experience.
deep-seated trauma.
We'll be doing some breathing exercises after this.
We're actually going to get you to sing "Stand By Me."
Lean on me, come on.
Take on me.
Yeah, take some sort of on me variation, right? Boys, I want to say a massive thank you for coming in. This has been we've just hit the 2 hours. It was pretty easy 2 hours. Maybe you were looking like you were struggling in the last half an hour, but look, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. I think that we're definitely going to have to reconvene. Hopefully, get the third musketeer in at some point if we can find another microphone somewhere, make it work. Look, it's absolutely amazing what you guys are doing, and it's just awesome to have this kind of conversation even more, and I hope that all the best for you guys moving forward and keep making a difference, and we can't wait to keep tracking your progress as you work along.
Oh, bro, and look, same goes for you guys. Thank you so much for inviting us on your show. I jumped at the chance, as you know. So keep up your great work, your community support, getting your message out, and happy to collab with you guys or any like-minded individuals doing the same thing in the same space. And you guys are top guys. Thank
you very much.
You're putting out an awesome message, and I'd love to do this every night if I could. So thank you. I honestly mean that from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for having us.
Legend.
Thank you so
I've got
much.
nothing else to add to what
That's all right. So
Nicely.
Instagram at Next Step Aus.
At the.next.step.aus. We had to do that because the Next Step is obviously a collaborative dance group, and as you can see, we're not going to be busting out any latest new tricky hip hop moves or
that's it.
or whatever.
Popping and locking and shit.
We chuck the Oz in there so
Is
that
the
you
IG
can.
the only platform you've got at the moment?
Again, without going into a few things, this year, I guess it's a bit of a pivotal point, and because we are volunteers and we are time poor at the best of times, we are looking to grow the Next Step onto a few different platforms, but it's just more for us, it is a little bit about funding, unfortunately, and we don't take funding. So, but we've got some amazing people just starting to get around us now that do want to fundraise and help us out and give us some money. So
that's
we can,
fucking awesome, man.
So that is really, really good. Like I'm not going to spend too much on this, but I did set up a GoFundMe at the end of last year because we were really starting to see that with a bit of funding, we could grow this, but alternatively, what we wanted to be able to do is for those guys reaching out to us who do want to go to a psychologist, we want to be able to say, do you know what, we'll pay for your first couple of sessions and get you there now, because they might not have the money or they might be financially burdened to a point that they've got all the right intentions to want to be able to do it, but it's just not financially viable. So for us, funding means putting it into someone like that, the right people who need support straight away.
And eventually might mean that it's you guys are able to dedicate more time to it. So if you guys are having to work full time or do whatever, and then you're also trying to provide this support, any sort of funding means that I'm able to be able to give it that little bit more time.
So is that GoFundMe still
the GoFundMe is way down. So I think I set it up towards the end of last year. We had 3 awesome friends of ours donate, and it was just nice for them to be able to do that. And we did use that funding in a positive way. So some of that funding I've donated back to other people fundraising for mental health awareness. So again, that pay it forward scenario. And then a couple of where we've tried to bring in the right people. Bought a coffee for someone to say thank you for their time on doing something like this for us. So that's where our funding's gone. But like I said, if we were to get funding, we want to start pushing it towards getting someone to help us, because as you have heard tonight, we are fucking technologically illiterate, both of us, and even Brady. So we want to revamp our logo. We want to do a website eventually. We want to put from Instagram over across to Facebook, and have someone help back us in that and do it properly. And we want to come across a little bit more polished.
Well, let me know when you want to do it, because I run a marketing agency. And
Here we go.
and like we build websites.
I literally looked at him and was like, oh, that's
Dude, honestly, I had no idea.
We'll be happy to help you in the future, so that'd be
I'm
really
just going to
good.
handball all those technological things.
Bang. But thank you. And this is where supporting community is what it's about, and hence why we're here. It's just more about getting the message out, and you meet some fucking cool blokes, and we get to have these conversations. So
That's it,
well
man.
done you, bro. So
Excellent.
yeah.
Well, Richie, Simo, thank you very much, boys.
Thanks, lads. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Justin.
Catch you next time.